These are huge radishes.
Talk. Can you hear me now?
Can you hear us?
Okay,
Sweet.
Well, you can leave that.
You
You can leave that on now.
That's fine for a little while. Until you get settled there, what you're doing.
So I assume that means anybody who... Does that mean everybody can hear us, right? Anybody who logs on?
Okay.
Yes.
Okay.
Cool.
Okay.
Awesome.
Nice to see everybody if we see you.
Winter Seeders, come join us at the 2025 Midwest Penn Turners Gathering. Mark your calendars. April 11th to 12th. You still have time.
Still have over 200 people that are going to be there. They've already paid their money. So there will be a good crowd.
So obviously we can't hear everybody else that's out there, but you can also feel free to put anything in the chat. We can monitor the chat, and it's a great way to ask any questions in advance. Anybody out there? Just say hi.
Kevin will be there. Awesome.
No, I think you'll be here.
You want me to hit 1 now? Get it over us.
Look at there.
Woo!
It came on, and there we are. Do we have a fan? No,
Actually,
everybody
no,
hates
you
us.
do
They
that.
can't stand us.
The heater.
Why is that bothering you?
Yeah.
Okay, can we kill the heater?
We can stop that, sure. Excuse me, folks. I'll be leaving.
Hello, Bob. Hello, Kevin. It's like romper room.
You know, I look up there. We got the neon sign going. You know the other thing missing? There ought to be a mug of something here in front. You know, we're sitting under a neon sign at a table. It just seems like
I don't know.
this is a lounge.
I don't know what you're talking about.
This is the lounge. This is where we come to socialize. Whether it be
Does
a
it go
glass
off
of
in a
milk,
second, or
ginger
does it go
ale.
off?
It'll go off in a minute.
Okay.
Well, of course, my mug would be full of Pepsi or RC.
Snapple. I only use Snapple.
Straight out of the bottle. You a Snapple bottle drinker?
Bob says that he'd like the Zoom better. And Bob, we know we're working on it. I think this is going to be better in the long run. It's just something that we've got to work on. This gives us the ability then, just being completely transparent with everybody, it gives us the ability then that this goes automatically out to YouTube, and that all the stuff that we had in the background and we're slowly putting up all the other videos that we have, but it just gives us a little bit more freedom for what we're going to be able to do going forward.
Absolutely, yeah. You can watch the replays right away, and they're there, right? It's not like some of the events where they're only there for a little bit. So,
Or then you have to edit them.
yeah, there's no downloading for whatever the format or
Yeah, so Bob, just give us a chance. I think we've got some new ideas coming up in the future. So we appreciate the fact that you're still here. This camera's good, right? Yeah, nice picture.
Yep. It was a good day. Woke up this morning with a bunch of snow on the ground. Got to drive over to Mark's.
Yeah, if anybody here who's not in Chicago, let me tell you what our weekend was like. Last Friday, it was 72 degrees. Saturday, we had 4 tornadoes hit within 30 miles of my house. Sunday morning, I got up and had about an inch of snow just on the grass. And then we got more snow this morning.
Yeah. This is what I woke up to this morning. So I got to drive to Wisconsin for warmer weather. How does that work?
For those of you who don't know, Mark's a tornado magnet.
Yeah.
Yeah, don't ever go anywhere with Mark during tornado season. We tend to follow him. So we're still a little early. This allows us to work out any bugs as we get started, and allows everybody to get in.
Sorry.
Feel free to post in the chat. Oh, 60s would be nice, Kevin.
You guys are killing me.
Right.
60s. It was a wee bit cold this morning with the snow.
Yeah, I've never left Illinois to go to Wisconsin for warmer weather. Ever.
Yeah.
It's just crazy. Yeah, that sounds unfortunate. Wildfires would not be fun. 80 in Arizona.
Oh, good, Harold. It says he's got his blanks from last week. They are awesome. Thanks.
We had a good time with that event last week. Some of it was a little bit confused, but when all is said and done, a lot of you enjoyed some good blanks and a good time, an opportunity to talk to us a little bit back and forth. So
Some still have some blanks coming.
some still have blanks coming, Dawn informs me. So we're happy to tell you that they didn't get lost in the mail. They got lost in our system. But it was, she's reviewed that video, I think 3 times, and it's only 2 hours long. So I don't know what the thing is slowing her down. But ultimately, they will all get out. And
Please.
ultimately, we hope they will all get out to the right people. She is sending pictures of the stuff that she thinks is what you bought. So all in all, it will be resolved. So if you're still waiting, our apologies for the delay, but they are gorgeous blanks. We've had a couple of people that got them and then sent back notes saying, "Oh my God, these are great." So yeah, it's a good theory. We think we will be doing it again. So
Hopefully with a little better planning.
yeah, well,
Here's one of the blanks I picked up.
like everything else, this is evolving. We're getting better and better at it and trying to do more and more so that you can see things and partake a little bit more. This is one of the blanks that Mark got. I'll let him tell you.
Oh no, I picked this one up. The wood is, what's the wood on this one?
Amboina.
Yeah, Amboina. And the nice thing is the finish is CA finish on top of it, and that's what we're actually going to talk about tonight, is how to get that exact finish on that.
You want to put the chat large over that screen?
Well, it's,
I thought you were going to put it across.
That's okay. We can see that. We can see whatever you want to.
is it this one? Which mouse is it? Nope.
So I will say, for those of you who were involved in the sale last week, next time it'll be significantly better. We've got some things already in flight.
Oh, you want to go live chat? Or where's this top chat?
Yep.
Okay, we're getting the chat up large enough that we can read it. So that's why you're not hearing any of us talk.
We'll all be squinting.
We're working very hard with all these, well, 2 younger guys and 1 old guy that can't see worth a darn. So
Oh, trust me, I squint with the best of them. So
70s to blizzard in less than 1 day with Joshua.
wow.
that's kind of a normal day in Wisconsin, I think. 70s to a blizzard. Going back to 70 takes a hell of a lot longer than getting down to the blizzard, though.
I don't know. We took 294 up here.
Oh, did you?
Not 70. Hey, so while we have you guys, the other thing that you can always do is Ed. This is a favor I'm going to ask. Ed does send out the flyer for topics that we're going to be doing, and so if you always make sure that you fill out the flyer on that one and let us know. And if you've got other ideas or something, or you know someone that might be able to help us with a topic, please send it to us at sales@exoticblanks.com. And we're always looking for topics. I think tonight's going to be fun. We've got a couple new products that we're going to be talking about that we had the exclusive to be testing for them. And I think this stuff is fantastic.
Hey, Rick's on from Glue Boost. Good to see you, Rick.
How can you see? Where do you see people on?
Blue
Down
Boost,
below it says
Blue Boost here.
Oh, nice.
Good to hear that you can see us. That means the video is working. You have no idea how reassuring that is to know that on your side you can see us.
All the way out in New Jersey. I mean,
Yeah. Hey, Revo, how are you tonight? This is pretty good. We can actually see what's going on, kind of.
well, it was nice for me when you guys were doing all the sales, because I know there was an issue with being able to hear Dean and yourselves back and forth, and I could hear all of you just fine from where I was at. So, which didn't help you guys any, not at all.
no, it
But
did. Not
I
having to hear you helped us quite a lot.
I was entertained at my end because I could just mute you when I wanted and then unmute you.
And so most of the time you didn't hear a thing. Good
Yeah.
judgment.
Like, huh,
We'll get better at that too.
what, muting Mark?
The beauty of this is while we have fun doing this, I have to then drive home an hour and a half with John too. So
So he has to be nice.
the reaming doesn't stop.
He has to be nice or it's a long walk.
Depends who drives.
Hey, Dean, can I ask you a favor? So I had a couple people text me that they're having a hard time figuring out how to get into the chat. So is there something that they need to know?
It's under live.
They're on a computer. They can see the screen. They're watching the video. They don't know how to get into the chat part.
If you can't see the chat, obviously you can't do anything.
I think there's a little button down here where they have to hit it that says show the or show the chat or something.
I don't know.
It's Donna, so I'm trying to. It's Donna, so I'm trying to be nice to her. Although she'll be asleep before I get home. Hello, Missouri.
Fade to black.
Click on the chat live chat.
But he forgot to mute it.
Forward to seeing you guys at the MPG in a few weeks. Yes, we will be at the MPG in a few weeks. Just talk about that a little bit before the event tonight. Mark is putting all the last minute details together.
Have you guys had a chance? Sorry, is it okay?
Yeah.
If you haven't had a chance to go on the website and go into the demos, we are packed. We've got, as we always do, 95% of it is pen related. We added a couple new topics just for a couple things that are out there. I know that I'm doing one that I haven't done in the past yet. It's on turning Christmas items, but it's basically using all the same things that you do for turning pens. And it's casting, and it's just a whole bunch of really cool stuff. John's doing a couple on casting that will work. I always loved it. I love this lineup. We got the Celtic Knot. Is it the Celtic Knot coming in this year? Who else? We've got Rich Kors, and he's doing
pendants and necklaces.
But we got For those of people, we've got one on just specifically set up for sharpening
Yep.
and using all the, making sure that we got. So to me, it looks like a great lineup. I'm pretty happy with it.
Can't maximize. Okay.
Wait, we actually have someone from Bavaria, Germany. That is impressive. That is impressive.
And it's the middle of the night there.
Well, I originally looked up because I thought it was from Batavia, and I live in Batavia, so I thought, oh, look at this. I got a neighbor.
6 hours. Isn't it about midnight or 1 o'clock in the morning in Germany? Heading midnight, getting to midnight. Yep, that's what I thought. Well, don't worry, we'll help you go to sleep in a couple of little while. One of our missions is to see if we can put people to sleep.
It is, yeah, it's 11:55 there currently.
I imagine he knew.
Yeah. And in case you wanted to know, they speak Bavarian, which is a dialect of Germany, but in some sources classify it as a separate language there in itself.
Okay.
It has the unique standardization code of ISO 639-3.
Well, I know I'll sleep better tonight.
No, really. Glad we cleared that up. That was going to keep me awake.
Well, this might keep you a little awake. It's in Southeast Germany, and it's acclaimed for great castles, fantastic beer, and a fairy tale countryside.
Nice.
Very nice.
Sounds like a nice place to visit.
Yep, been there. And it was only 50 some odd years ago, probably before half of you were alive.
Writer and Nobel laureate Thomas Mann is from there. It's Germany's highest point at 2962 meters. So
There we go.
Well, now you're prepared for your trivia night.
just a little something, just a little something.
Yeah.
So he says he's living in the midst where the world's best beer comes from. And I always thought that was Milwaukee, Wisconsin.
No,
No.
been both places, and I guarantee you Germany is better.
Or Point.
No, definitely not. No.
Yeah, making pens from hops is not fun. I don't know about you. Maybe it's just because I couldn't get the smell off my hands, and the aroma. I'm not a big hops fan, but casting it was bad enough. But when I started turning it and sanding it, whew.
We got Michigan, we got Pennsylvania.
One thing about working with any spice is that we did every spice in the cabinet years ago.
Yeah,
It was
everybody's
brand new.
doing them. Yep.
And it's not that bad casting them and not that bad getting them ready. But boy, when you put a tool to it,
Yeah.
there are some of them that particularly if at the time I was using CA frequently as a reinforcement, because of course there was no such thing as home stabilizing. And boy, that stuff can really be vicious.
Oh, you turn hops, you know it.
Yeah.
And then you smell it. It just smells like a beer keg exploded. And it's such a strong aroma. I mean, I didn't know much about what went into making beer, but after I smelled that stuff, I knew it was in there. It is strong.
So the question comes up that we're gonna finishing some pepper and salt mills, and they're interested in the product by Glue Boost. We will definitely be covering that tonight. Hey, Dean, while I've got you on the call, did you get the pictures on your text so we can substitute those in? Thank you, sir. Yeah, that we are going to specifically talk about that in the middle of it. So, someone's here from Wisconsin.
Tony Rosendahl. Tony Rosendahl is the guy that taught me how to use the drill doctor.
Yeah.
I was using the drill doctor absolutely wrong. If you ever want to know how to use the drill doctor, talk to Tony. He
There is
is fantastic on it.
there is definitely a wrong way to use a drill, doctor, because I've done it too. I've shortened a few drill bits that
Uh-huh.
way.
Yep.
Like I thought these were supposed to get sharper, not shorter. Yep.
And he's giving a demonstration in Milwaukee, I heard the other day. So
Nice.
coming up soon.
At your club?
At our group in Milwaukee, yeah.
Oh, I'll definitely come to that.
Yeah, Tony gives a great demonstration too.
Oh yeah, I've been up to your place a couple times. I like that woodcraft too.
Yeah, Woodcraft is nice, and the people there are beautiful people. They really are good to us.
Yeah, I've demoed for Easy Wood Tools up there numerous times. They're
Okay.
very great people. They're very nice people. They actually came out and that last show that I did in December last year. They in Chicago. They came down.
Really?
Yeah,
Really? Wow.
they ran into me by accident while I was at the show, and we had a blast chatting for a little while.
Do much damage?
So we got a couple more minutes, and then we will officially kick off.
So it's not uncommon that you hear Mark and you don't see him. Mark likes to stand over there, and we're always saying, get in the picture, but I don't think he wants to be seen with us.
Yeah.
So-
Well, you know, he chooses his company fairly carefully, and unfortunately, we don't qualify.
So if we move our lips just right when he's talking,
We could look like,
we can
well,
be
no,
Mark.
we could never be Mark. No, we couldn't be Mark.
Are you trying to
Well,
take it?
he's trying to.
Can I help you with that, Mark?
Here we go.
There we go.
Lakeland, Florida. I was just down in Florida last month. Went to Tampa and went to Orlando. Both were beautiful. We'll flip
It's
we'll
6
flip to that
o'clock.
camera when we talk about the RBG.
Okay, then why don't we kick it off? First, I'd like to, of course, say thank you to everybody for coming tonight. This is the second YouTube that we've done for the Thursday monthly operation. We will be continuing to do that with one major reason. This is going to be recorded without much help from me. So it comes down to, after the fact, you are able to go back and find this information. These meetings have been pretty good as far as content. If you actually paid attention to any of them, there was an awful lot that goes on in them and a fair number of tips and tricks and so forth. So we really do believe that it's worth keeping them and starting somewhat of a library to show different answers to different questions. Now, this is not to be instead of our YouTubes or Mark's YouTubes, or now John is starting to set up his own channel. So if you're looking for information on anything, and particularly if you're looking for information on casting, because John's the newest of the crowd to have a channel, go look for it. You'll find that he already has a dozen videos up. And those videos are, of course, really high quality. John does a fantastic job of giving good information and also spending the time to edit it, which I don't do. Mark does too. So if you're looking for 10-minute videos, that's Mark's area of expertise. So at any rate, all that being said, this is just one more place that we're trying to put information that you can go back to and find out anything that you might want to know about any of the topics, which brings up what's tonight's topic. What we're going to be talking about tonight is finishing. Some of you may say, gee, wasn't that 3 months ago? And the answer is yeah. However, when we put out the survey, which I've been doing before these meetings, I'm looking for what information you're looking for. And what we find this time is that most of the people are looking for information on finishing. And since this happens to coincide with the time that Blue Boost brought out their lacquer shot, we thought that it would be very well timed to have that as the topic, a part of the topic for tonight's YouTube. So That's the reasoning behind it. This is the last of the times that we'll get together on the Thursday monthly video prior to the MPG. So I'm going to give Mark a little time, and I'll know that giving Mark a little time means that we'll be here for a little while. But he will give us a little background on what's going on with the MPG and short commercial, no more than a half an hour.
You guys kill me.
And then we'll spend 10 minutes doing the rest.
we'll kill the rest of it after that. Go ahead. Mark.
Nobody mocked at the irony of my YouTube channel. It's 10 minutes to better pen making, and I do not have a single video that are 10 minutes long.
Yeah.
Why don't you get in?
Yeah. No, I'm fine. I'm fine for right now. You want to throw up the last thing? So as Ed said, the Midwest Pen Turners Gathering, April 11th and 12th. It's $59 to come in, and we're going to keep it at $59 even if we jump into April. We're going to just keep it at $59 for everybody right now. We've got close to 250 people already signed up, so we're normally gathering around 300 people. If you go on the website and you take a look at it, we've got 14 fantastic vendors. So our vendors are just incredible. Everybody from exotic blanks to easy wood turning tools to P-Town Subby to RJR wood. If you're looking for wood, it's there. If you're looking for pen blanks, all John's pen blanks are going to be there. It's just a fantastic event. And then if you're looking for content, I love our lineup. Our lineup has got 2 AAW members who are going to be doing demos at this event, and actually a third AAW member, Linda Ferber, will be doing a demo for us out there. So it's topics for pens, mostly predominantly pens. There will be a couple topics that will span a couple different areas, like casting. So if you're starting out in pens and moving on to something else, but we're also going to have a demo specifically on sharpening and some other things. So we're always going to keep our commitment to 90 to 95% pen related, but we're always going to give you a little bit of a opening into going into some other areas. So with that, you have a couple more days to sign up over the web. And if you get a chance, I would come out. I'd love to see you guys there and stop by and just say hi.
And we, of course, will be there as well, we being Exotic Blanks. So we look forward to having the opportunity to meet some of you that we haven't met before. And those of you who know us, well, it's always good to get together once a year and get to see you and say thank you and hello and all those things. So yes, there will be some specials going on there. And I have a ton of wood that's coming in. So there probably will be some wood blanks there too. So on with tonight, 2 major issues that we wanted to cover here regarding finishing. First of all, this is the new product from
Blue Boost.
Blue Boost, thank you.
Yeah.
It is called Lacquer Shot, and it is a lacquer. John and Mark are both testers for YouTube, for easy. Come on.
For Glue Boost.
Glue Boost.
Yeah.
Thank you. So they're both. Okay, you got me? Okay,
All right.
thank you.
Sorry about that. We're gonna switch. We lost power on one of our cameras.
Excuse me for just a second. I'll get to what you need to get this going.
All right, so while our camera's getting fixed, as Ed was saying,
Well, you can actually get started, John, because that's the next thing on the agenda anyway.
Yeah.
So why don't you go ahead and talk a little bit about
we're
the
talking
new Blue
about
Boost products.
the new Lacquer Shot Ultra Thin Flash Coat. There's another lacquer out there that Glue Boost has, and it's the cold checking. So this is the Flash Coat, and it's really nice. And as Ed said, we have the honors of being friends with Rick at Glue Boost, and so we get to test some things every now and then before they actually hit the market. And this was one of those things. It's new on the market, so a lot of people are asking, well, how did you guys have a chance to form any opinion when it just came out? Well, we've had it a little bit longer. Thank you, Rick. And we got the opportunity to play with it. I will say I've used lacquer here and there over the years on my woodworking, and I've never had anything come out of a can as smooth and nice as this. It's got the adjustable nozzle on it, so you can turn this depending on which way you want the angle of your spray, and it is without having to buy the high density, low volume sprayers and compressors and all that stuff. I got great results from it. It was one of those things I applied with the lathe on, and we'll go into more depth as we talk about this. But for this moment, I use it with the lathe on, and I put it on a pen, and I put 5 coats on. And if any of you have ever used lacquer, you know how overwhelming it can get with the odor, and this stuff held up really well. It didn't run me out of the shop. You still want to use any lacquer, safety precautions, use them in well ventilated areas. But I've had lacquer that I've used in the shop and then had to spray it and leave, put a respirator on, and this stuff, I didn't have any issues with it. It went on very well. It levels out really nice, and I was able to apply my coats all within 30 minutes. I put 5 coats in less than a half hour because once it's dry to the touch, you can put another coat on. So this is available here at Exotic Blanks. They just got it in. And if you're into turning, whatever you're into turning, you're going to want to give it a shot if you like your lacquer finish. A lot of people are always saying, we don't want it to feel, our woods feel built up or plastic. We want to feel the texture of the wood, and this is great. It's an alternative for you, right? It doesn't replace anything. It's just another alternative.
So yeah, we'll get into that one when we get into the finishes going on at the end. So, and if you have any questions about any of the products or any of the Glue Boost line, the president of the company is on the call. He's muted. I don't know why, but he is muted. So if there's any questions, please put it in the chat. He'll reply in the chat, or he can call me and we can talk about it. So, all right. So without any further ado, one of the things we wanted to talk about, and we are going to differentiate ourselves from the last time because we just showed some different techniques. This time we're actually going to finish a pen, and I'm going to do my way of finishing. And to give you guys a little bit of a layout of what we're going to do, I'm going to do my way of finishing a pen. Then John is going to be doing a lacquer shot on some of the other things. We're going to talk about pepper mills. We're going to talk about some other things that you can use with it. Then John will go into some specialty finishes like the ultra thin. When do we use that? And then finally, we're going to show you a whole bunch of different blanks for that. I know everybody thinks this is taboo, but we do use the finish. We use a finish on a lot of our acrylic blanks also. And we'll get into the reasons that we do it and how we do it. And that's all going to be stuff that we're going to cover over the next 4.5 hours.
Excuse me for just 1 minute. Just 1 minute to answer a question here. It's is it available from Exotic Blanks? Yes, it is available, and Dean put up the link for you. And what is the price? $24 for a can, and the can is 13 ounces. So that's the answer to that. The other answer up there, how to deal with overspray. I think John will cover that when he does the actual demonstration of it, Betty, if you can hold on for just a few minutes. Okay, I'm sorry I broke in, but go guys.
Nope, not a problem.
All right, so you want to flip to the camera 2? All right, so this is a piece of wood. I'm going to show you my basic finish for how I attack putting a finish on here. And the beauty of this finish and the way that we do this stuff is every one of us does it slightly differently, and they all come out and they all work perfectly fine. So I'm one that will typically start with the ultra thin or the thin. And what I'm going to do with the thin is basically use it to seal everything off. So we're opening up perfect. So if you see, I've got a piece of wood here. I assume everybody can see it. So what I'm going to do is I love using blue paper towel. That's my applicator. And I'm different than anybody else around because I'm the one that advocates that we do this with the lathe off. I love the viscosity in this stuff, and we can do it with the lathe off. So I love being able to do that. And then the other thing that I'm going to do, and I want to talk to you about real quickly, is if you're new to finishing and you're having a challenge, or you're new to doing a CA finish, notice here on this blank that I just rounded the pen over. And now I'm going to put my finish on it. So that this way, it gets away from the fact that if I turn my pen all the way down to the bushings, everything is perfect, I've sanded it perfectly, and I've never done a CA finish on something, and I try it for the first time and I don't like it, it's not a situation you want to be in. So what I'll do is, especially when I'm playing with a new wood or something different, I'll put the finish on now, and then I'll cut it off. And I could probably get 4 or 5 good finishes on this piece of wood before I have to commit to anything. So in my case, I'm going to start with the orange. And I'm simply going to take my blue paper towel. I'm going to put a couple drops on there. And I'm going to just, with the rail, rub it in.
For those of you who don't know, this is a piece of Amboina. It's one of the pieces that Mark got the last time he was up here. But beautiful piece of wood, but it's sure going to look better in a few minutes.
So there we can see I'm in a ready compared to the raw piece. I've got it on. So I'll typically, the weirdest thing that I see on the internet all the time, especially on pen making sites, is when people say that I put 15, 20 coats. And, the problem with doing 15, 20 coats, A, it just takes a long time, and B, that's 15 times that you could have a challenge with something. So all I'm going to do is I'm going to do 5 coats. So you can see here, I've got the coats on. I'll hit it with a quick spray when I've got it to just get that set up. Now notice one thing that I did, it was a spritz. I didn't spend a lot of time. I didn't give it a heavy spray. I just spritzed it on there. And you can see I'm already building up the shine on here. And the nice thing about the finish is it's dry to my touch already. And you can see I'm already getting that shine line on here. So if I really needed to do anything with this one and I wanted to, if there was any kind of nibs on there, I could at this point, after I put my 2 quick coats on, I can take 4/0 steel wool and just knock down any of my nibs. But in this case, I don't have any. So now what I'm going to do is I'm just going to take the same blue paper towel and I'm going to put on the medium. So here you can see I put a pretty liberal drop on here, and I'm just going to slowly rub it in. Give it a couple quick spritz. I'm going to put another pretty liberal drop on the paper towel. As I said, this is where I differ from John and I differ from Ed, is that I do it with the lathe off and I just turn it. I love the viscosity on it to do it this way. So I just give it a couple quick spritz. And because I really, really want to bring the shine out on here, here's the pen that I did for practice. And you know what? Can we throw it on the other one?
Yeah.
I'll show you what our finished pens look like. So that's the finished pen that I did using that exact same wood. And if you're wondering where I got the wood, this was the wood that Ed had on the call last Friday. So okay, go back to this one, John, please. I'm gonna put on, just because I feel that I want a really beautiful shine on here, I'm gonna put on my last drop. I'm gonna take it. I'm gonna rub it in. And as I said, I love the viscosity on this. I'm going to hit it with a quick spritz. And there you go, I'm done. So now all I got to do, and you can see I can grip it pretty hard, it dried out. So people will say, I'm going to just talk about some of the rumors that I see and things like that on the internet. No, I'm fine with where we're at. On the internet and different people who are using the product. one of the things that people say is that they don't ever like to use the accelerator. You know what? This is part of a system. So I can't tell you, I can only tell you that I only get the great results when I use the accelerator. Remember, the accelerator, when you're using a CA type finish on something like this, you get the idea that as long as I can touch it, it's dry, but it's not. What spraying that accelerator did was dry out the layer that's in front of me and then set me up so that when I put on this next layer, I'm basically drying out the bottom of that next layer as it's coming in. So for me, it's really important to always have that next layer dry on here. So now I already know that I can go, I don't even need to use any kind of, normal sandpaper. If I had any kind of nibs, I would go into it with 400 wet dry and I would use it wet. But I'll tell you this, I know for a fact that that finishes on there pretty good. So now what I'm going to do is I'm simply going to take my micro mesh pads, and these are the pads that come with it. That come in the set that I like to use. And I'm simply going to apply some water on it. And I'm going to just give me a couple of quick drips of water on here. And I will go and sand it this way. I'll go with the grain on my first grain, or with the grain on the first one. Then on the second one, I will turn it on. And then I'll just go with the pad and I'll go against it, against the grain. Then I'll take my third one. I'll go again. And remember, on this piece of wood, there's really no grain on it, but because it's just so such a beautiful piece of wood, and it's because burl, so I'm gonna now take it. Then I'm gonna go with the next one. I'm gonna go once again with the grain on it. Do you have any Novus 2 polish?
Not where we can get at.
Okay.
There's some
What?
microfine.
Yeah,
Yorkshire grit.
Yorkshire grit.
Okay, yep. So I'm gonna let it come up to speed. Oh, you know what? I'm gonna leave it, and John, when you talk about buffing,
Oh, there you go.
we can talk about it as we're doing buffing. And so now I'm just gonna go the other way. And if you want to buff this piece out, you can. See, I like to get the scratches out going with the grain, against the grain, with the grain, and against the grain. So I don't know if you can see it on or appreciate it on the screen, but you can kind of see that shine line coming out on here. And I'm done. And you know what? I will play with this. I'm going to use, normally I'd use a Novus polish on here, but I'm going to use Yorkshire grit to bring out a little bit of color on here. And so I don't know if you're familiar with Yorkshire grit. There's two different grits that you can get. There's the black and the white. The white is great for doing doing pens and stuff like that. So I'm just going to take a small amount, get it on here. And then I'm going to work it into my blank.
Yorkshire grit is available at Exotic Blanks, but I want to tell you that I've had several conversations with them. It's now part of Easy Wood Tools, and the container that you get is a 3 lifetime supply.
Yeah.
So you amazed at how huge these containers are. So when you buy it, don't buy 2. Well, you can buy the microfine and the regular if you wish, but you won't use that whole container ever.
So now I'll turn my speed up, and I'm simply going to press this in. I'm trying to build a little bit of heat to press it in. And I don't know.
Yeah, you got a nice shine.
I think you can see that shine line on there.
Yeah, the microfine is great for doing finishes and acrylics, CA finishes, acrylics, things like that. And I know I was talking to Christy Easy Wood, and she said that a lot of people recommend they'll use the black canister of the normal and then switch and go to the ultra fine to follow it up, and they get really great results.
And to just give you an idea of what they look like, let's drop them out here. So that's the blank, and that's what we started it like with. So
On the other side, so it rolls into it.
Yeah, go that way. There we go.
let's see if we move them down. So you can see the nice shine line that's on there, and it's just a fantastic finish. It was done literally in 3 to 4 minutes when you're on the process on there. And then to me, the exciting part about it is I only had to put on 4 coats or 5 coats. It really depends on what I want to do with it. And there was everything that you need to do it. We already have. It's just 4/0 steel wool and then micro mesh. So I don't know if there's. I'm going to look to see if there's any questions.
Nope, not at the moment.
Well, and the nice thing about this too is, especially in wood pens, if you want a high gloss, you can polish it like Mark did. But if you don't want to have something real shiny, sometimes people want more of a matte finish. You can knock that shine down with a little bit of 4/0 steel wool. And just to take the glare off, you're not wanting to cut into the product or anything. You just want to take the shine off. And it's still a great protectant, a sealer.
I just want to show.
Yeah, the shine line.
Yeah, that shine
You can
line.
actually see the.
Now, if you didn't have your finish smooth, then that shine line would be wavy. But as you can tell, it's nice and straight, so it's a good smooth surface.
Sure. So when I okay, excellent question. So let me go over all my speeds and everything. Thank you, Dean. So when I start, yeah, we can go back to the big camera. So I'll jump
Get
in.
on in.
So when I start, I do all my sanding. I'm going to do my sanding at a low speed, probably around 1,000 to get my sanding. I alternate between different ways, going with the grain and against the grain. Then once I get it done, then what I'm going to do is put my finish on. That sanding and everything else that I'm going to be doing at that point, same speed. I'm going to be doing it no more than 1,000. And then what happens is when I put my finish on and I'm going to do my buffing, the buffing will go right at about 1,000. But when I did the Yorkshire grit, I will crank it up. Remember, Yorkshire grit's going to be a friction-based or a temperature-based finish that's going to help remove any of those fine scratches. And then when, John, you talk a little bit about doing the buffing system, I know when I put it on and I use the Beal buffing system, I crank the speed up on it.
Absolutely.
And I'll go as, pretty much as fast as the lathe will go. Maybe about 2,000, 2,500, somewhere in that. And I don't know what you do, but I know that in my case, I only use the third wheel, the carnauba wax, and I only use the carnauba wax wheel on it.
But that's after you've used micro mesh.
That's after after I've run through my micro mesh. And then I like, to be honest with you, I like the Novus 2 polishes. I didn't bring one out here today, but Nova 2 polish is a real nice one. You can get that one. You can get Nova 2 on, is it okay to say that we get them on Amazon? It's also, you get it at the Container Store. The Container Store has a great price on it. So with that being said, that was we wanted to set up a little bit of an idea of just a basic CA finish for anybody who's never done a CA finish. And now John's going to take you through all the real cool things that he does with CA finishes and finishes on.
Want to get out of there?
Yeah, real quick. I will say though, when it comes to your wood, your process, when you're dealing with something as and blank like the Amboina, and it turns so nice and it smooths out real well. It's as smooth as maple, but it's got 10 times the character. You don't have to worry as much about open grain or maybe voids that you have to fill. But sometimes when you turn a pen, you're going to have to go in there and add a little extra care to your steps, and maybe break things up between your routine. And in a case like this, this was an oak burl pen, and as you can see, there's knots, there were voids, there were cracks, and so your process may change a little bit because now you've got to try to fill things in. You've got to maybe seal it. You may have to build a low spot up in it. So that's where the Glue Boost products all come in hand. It allows you to pick and choose them as you need based on the project at hand.
But let me just say, it's okay to interrupt.
Yeah.
One of the things that people talk about all the time, and you look at on the internet, is that there are people who swear by boiled linseed oil or swear by any of the wipe-on finishes. The thing about those, they look great for a month, 2 months, 3 months, somewhere in that time frame. But eventually those things, and I've been doing pens for the longest time. I look at some of my original remember when I'm going to tell you how old I am when I do this one is, Ed, you're probably the only one who I know will remember this. We used to use those hot bars.
Oh, yeah.
And you would rub it on there and go as hard as you can in that paper towel and hold it on there. And you do the brown bar first and then the tan bar after that one. I look back at some of those pens that I made. I'm not worried about the quality of the turning, but the finish is just worn out. And so I can't find anything that will hold a finish better than CA. But John, you and Ed have now been experimenting with some new finishes. So I'm going to turn it over to you guys.
Oh, yeah. So we're going to get more into depth with the Glue Boost products. And I'm going to actually show you when I would use the fill and finish and why I like it as well as I do. It is really the number one tool in my toolbox when it comes to finishes. Fill and finish ultra thin for me is my start of everything. So it's a scratch filler, it's a stabilizer, it's a sealer. It's one of the best things I've ever used, and it's a standalone finish. So, and we're gonna show you how we do that. This is basically the container here. Put it here so you can see. We refer to it as the teal label. It's the fill and finish ultra thin, and you're going to want to use it with a whip tip, and this will help you not glue it to your hand. So, the right camera. One of the biggest things that I like to do before I start any pen is I seal my ends. Once it's turned down, what I feel this does is it gives me a sealed coat on each end, and then I apply lastly on top, because if I use water when I polish this or when I micromesh this down, I don't want any moisture to wick in underneath my finish on this end grain. So I always like to seal the end grain after I sand it or mill it down to size. And if I've already turned it and then it's an afterthought, shoot, I forgot to seal those ends, I'll just put a little bit on a paper towel or a piece of paper, and I'll just dip the end of the blank in it, flip it over and hit it. And that way it allows it to soak in. I don't spray it right away. I let it wick in, and that's what this stuff does. It wicks in better than anything. It's like a little stabilizing bottle, itself, without all the vacuum pumps and the extra tanks. But once I know it's soaked in real well, then I'll spray it, and I may dip it a second time, but you'll notice how it seals the ends real well. But I'll also use this when I'm turning other objects. So in this case, the Choa cactus, it's prone for having all these little pits, and that's what allows us to put the colored resin in it. And we can have a lot of fun playing this up. So what I like to do is I use this ultra thin as a base coat, and that seals everything together. If there's any little micro openings, cracks, or crevices along where the resin may have pulled away from that material, that glue will wick in and seal it all, and then I'll start my base. Go ahead.
This is particularly worth mentioning that when you do that, you are diminishing the possibility that you will crack that pen when you put it together.
Oh, absolutely.
You're putting a good fill on the actual material, binding it closer together, and Choya cactus can be a real pain. It's very porous when you start out with it. So what John is doing essentially is building the character of that wood or product and making it easier for himself when he gets it on the lathe. You can do additional coats of it when it's on the lathe if you're chicken. I am.
Well, and really it all depends on the material, because if it's a hard material like that cactus, I mean, that stuff, it's harder than a lot of the woods that we use.
Yep.
That first initial coat will soak in, it'll level off. You put your glue dry over the top of it, the accelerator to cure it, And as you build up your coats, you'll know if it's how smooth it is and how deep you need to go with it.
You know, that's probably one of the coolest things about the, I don't want to say that I'm, jonesing over the product line, but I am.
Mhm.
The coolest thing about this product line is the fact that it is self-leveling.
Absolutely.
And where you and I differ, and you'll talk about it, and Ed differs too, is that you guys do it with the lathe on, I do it with the lathe off. But I love the open time.
Yes.
I love the fact that I can get that on there. I can get it on there, doing it that way. And I love the fact that it's self-leveling. I never have to worry about that one. And the other thing that I have found is, and you want to comment on it, hopefully, John, is the flexibility.
Yep.
So I don't have to worry about white lines. I don't have to worry about any kind of smoking in my finish, and I don't have to worry about any kind of checking or cracking.
Well, and that's it. I mean, if you look at these pens, I've pulled pens out 6 months after I've used other brand of CA with accelerator and found cracks in the finishes. And I pull pens out now that are 2 years old, and they're just as clear and shiny as they were the day I started.
And I think, to give a little perspective for everybody, if you don't know, John and I and Ed have been working with, or have known about Glue Boost and working with the Glue Boost team for, I think it was 2018, 2019, somewhere right in that time frame where we first started to do it. And I know that Rick,
17, I think we were in Ohio.
yeah,
2017.
Rick, oh yeah, so it could be 20. Rick
So-
contacted me, asked me to do it. And the first thing I did was call you two up and say, oh my God, I love this thing. And to give you a little bit of background on it, and I don't want to steal Rick's thunder or make it uncomfortable, but this finish, he uses it. If you go on their website, it's great for doing musical instrument repairs, guitar repairs, things like that. So it is a high-end finish. It was never like some of the other products that are out there, and I'm never going to say anything bad about the other products that are out there, but a lot of the other products out there were intended to be super glues.
Absolutely.
This is not. This was intended to be a finish.
And that's the difference, right? Go ahead, Dean.
Go ahead.
Wow.
So obviously he's got.
Yes. Yeah. So the finish is peeling off the edges of the blank. I guess it would all, for me, if I notice I'm not getting good adhesion with the product, then I'm first going to look at the blank to see what kind of material it is. I would start out with wiping it down with acetone real well and making sure there's no surface oils. Some woods, especially from Central America that we deal with, they have a lot of oil in them. So you have to remove that oil before you put your finish on, and you're not going to get your glue, your finish to actually hold up and stick to the wood. Yes.
Wengi is a tough one. The rosewoods are typically good, but Wengi is a brutal one to be doing. And I didn't talk about it in my part of the demo, but John, if you want to throw those up, I think these are imperative for doing the finish on here. Is that I use Delrin bushings, and because I was using a full blank, when I actually get it down to actually doing my final pen, and I was have turned it all the way down, I take the bushings off, so there's no chance of getting any kind of finish onto my bushings and getting them to stick.
Yep.
What I'll do is I'll drop down into these Delrin bushings, and I think with your technique of filling in the ends, between filling in the ends and then switching to Delrin, I think that problem would go away completely.
Absolutely.
Because I think
And
what it is the glue just goes over,
it sticks to the metal bushings.
it sticks to either the metal bushings or stick into something else.
Absolutely. So when I first started putting CA finishes on pens, I didn't have Delrin bushings, and this is back, years ago, and long before we even knew Glue Boost existed. And one of the problems I was having was I would actually put too much glue on the surface of the pen blank, and it would transition across my metal bushings, and then I couldn't get the bushings off the pen blank. So I would result in taking a razor blade and try to score it, and then grab it with pliers and try to pop them off, and it would actually break further on the pen itself. And then I'd have to apply more glue and sand it off, and it was a huge learning curve. If you're not using Delrin bushings, make sure you do that. And remember, you don't have to pile the glue on thick. It's not about how thick you put it on, it's layers.
And that's the other thing. We're only putting on, the big difference for me is that we're only putting on 5 layers.
Yeah.
If I was putting on 15, 20 layers, the odds of me making a mistake and getting it on my bushings or getting it to pour off and changing that diameter is very big. When I'm only putting on 5 layers and I put those first 2 layers on, I do it completely opposite, right? Normally people will put the thin on top. I put the thin on bottom underneath because I am using the thin to seal it off. So I'm using my orange coat to seal everything off.
And like you and I always discuss, the material speaks to what it needs. So if you have 5 coats on and you realize, hey, you know what, this is kind of a wavy blank, I had some low spots, I'm just not quite happy with it, put a few more coats on, switch to the medium, build up your service, but just know you're going to have to sand it back down.
So George asks about, is it good for pizza cutters and ice cream scoops? The answer is yes, it is. I will usually let them air out and make sure that I have them aired out. But remember, as Rick points out, it's not food safe. So not that you would ever have a worry on it. You know, most anything, anything that you put on those as a finish is not necessarily food safe. You just have to make sure that they are out and eventually that they have no problem with it. So hopefully that answers it. We will actually have some handles that I do. I've sprayed them with lacquer, and now I'm going to go to a lacquer shot with them. But coming up in the rest of this video in about 20 minutes, you'll see some handles that I do.
One thing I forgot to tell everybody, there will be a giveaway in this session. We're giving away 2 cans of the new product, the new lacquer shot. At some point, Dean will tell you how you can be the lucky winner, I hope.
Now might be a good time to give one away.
It's up to you, Dean. You want to start looking at that or you want to wait a little while? Okay, go ahead and do your thing.
So we've got, as Ed says, we've got 2 cans of lacquer shot that will be going out.
One at a time.
And we're going to put one out now and one for I don't want to say the person who stands here the longest, but you're going to have to enjoy the rest of the demo for the other one.
I see the question, is it available in Germany? I'm going to let Glue Boost answer that because he obviously knows better than anybody else.
There is
distribution.
There is a distribution in Germany. Let me call up Rick and find out.
Well,
Rick, Rick, if you want to put that up on there.
Just let them know where they can get it if you don't mind, Rick. And meanwhile, we'll get on with John. I'm sorry to interrupt.
Oh, absolutely. So while you guys are getting in on the drawing in the chat, I just want to point out another thing that I like to use this ultra thin for is if I'm turning down an embedded object, and in this top pen here, it was dried flowers, and I seal this after I turn it down. I actually cut into the flower petals that are embedded in the resin. So if you're turning an embedded object pen, it's nice to seal all that, and that ultra thin will wick in and stabilize all these extra pieces that you've cut into to give you a good foundation to build your finish on.
Pine cones, sweet gum pods, those are always something that
And will you hand me the blank in there of the thistle pod? Just the green and blue blank there, the thistle pod. So this blank is a thistle pod, and it's quite delicate even to turn. And one of the things I like to do is, as I'm turning this, I'll get it round, and then I'll coat this with a thin layer of the ultra thin. I'll allow it to wick in. As you can see, the centers are a little soft. Everything, these small petals, as you turn this down, you'll start to hear tick, tick. And as you hear the ticks, you know that these are flaking out, so it's time to stop. Coat another layer of the ultra thin, hit it with the glue dry, let it cure, and it's usually within a minute. And then I'll start turning again. And I may do that 3 or 4 times before I get it down to its final size. But what that does, it preserves all this character from ending up on the shop floor. So as long as you're sealing it and helping hold it all together, by the time you get it to the finished size, you've kept all this in place. You don't have to glue pieces back in or fill a lot of holes with the medium fill and finish.
And one of the comments makes perfect sense. It says thin is also very good for SpectraPly, and I agree with that 100%.
Yep.
Good point. Thank you.
Thanks for helping out on that one.
Yeah, you can't go wrong with the ultra thin. I start every finish off with it. I feel it seals the pores. Even if I don't want a heavy built up thick finish over something, it's a sealer. Oftentimes when I sand something down, I notice that I may leave scratches in it. and I can work them scratches out with more sandpaper. But if I have more repairs to do, this ultra thin fill and finish will actually seal a lot of them minor scratches, and then I'll micro mesh right after that. So it's just a wonderful product. I mean, I can't say enough about it. So
Hey, and it looks like I won the glue. So, okay, that worked out great. Thanks, Dean. It looks like Mark Dreyer won the glue. So that worked out well.
Congratulations, Layla. Okay.
And we will have another one closer to the end. So it's definitely worth it.
well, you're going to enjoy it. Like I said, I had a little bit of time to play with that lacquer, and it's good stuff. It's good stuff. One of the nice things about it also is there's not a lot of overspray. And that's one of the things I was concerned about when I started using lacquer. Through my years, I used to do a lot of flat work, and so I'd have a lot of overspray, but I had the high volume, low density type gun. Or low volume gun. I was spraying all this stuff out, and I would do it outside on sawhorses so that I didn't have all that worry in the shop. I did that in my basement, and my wife didn't even complain when she came home from work. There was no problems. So she knows when I cast PR, she'll walk in the door and say, "Oh, you were casting," or she'll say, "You were cutting antler today. I can smell it." So she's got a bionic nose. There was no complaints from her on the lacquer. It's good stuff.
Can I tell my favorite joke?
Oh boy.
Oh.
So whenever I'm spraying a lot of lacquer or I'm doing a lot of glueless finish or any kind of other finishes down there, polys and stuff like that, when the house smells really bad, Donna will come home and say, "Oh, you were spraying downstairs in the basement again, right?" And I'd say, "Hey, if I lived in Florida, the windows would be open and I wouldn't have to worry about it." And she always would say, "We're not moving to Florida just so you could put a finish on." And I would say, "Who's we?"
All
right.
It's really
Someone
better
put
than-
up a laugh.
really better than 50th
Hopefully, if you
time.
enjoyed it, just put up a laugh. I said it's my favorite one. All right, so let's getting into so John and Ed, are you guys gonna do a lacquer shot of a pen that you've got?
I can do that. Let me show you how. So we're gonna probably want to turn that camera though, because I'm gonna need it
So we're gonna
angle out. So
Let's see. Why don't we move this to camera two, and we'll put a beautiful pen in there so you have something to look at while they're figuring everything out.
hopefully this fits between. It does not. That's no help.
What are you trying to do?
Well, I got a solution. I'll just use the bushings and that'll bump it out a little more. The difference is your setup and mine.
Natural.
You know, like
Natural.
anything, when you go from one shop to another, you know where everything's at in your own. And
There you
All
go.
right, I got a couple of ha-has, so thank you guys. I knew Kim would always say give me a little thank you.
all right. Well, Mark, go ahead and slide that. You got it over here?
Yep.
All right.
John.
So,
So
3.
One.
two. Two. Hike.
My choice.
Oh, I'm sorry. It is one. Go ahead. Yes. All right. So what I do to eliminate overspray or any concerns about it, first thing I do is I just took a scrap piece, took it to the bandsaw, and I notched it. And what I did that for is so that it sets in here and just leans back so it kind of catches on the bed. I can leave it like that. I usually take just a scrap towel, and I'm only going to do this because of everything else that's back there. So I've got my blank up. This is just a piece of maple, nothing fancy.
Zoom in a little bit more.
Where did
Which one first?
I'm going to use your can because my can disappeared.
Go for it. Fine.
Okay,
Oh, it's right at the top.
It's
Probably.
Oh,
good.
okay.
It's good. You got it.
let's find that.
You're good.
All right, so got the board up. Now, in my video, I did a pennant in my video, and what I did was, if I were concerned about anything else that I had up here. I can take some painter's tape and just kind of wrap it around here. Right, I can cover things up. Maybe. There we go. I can cover this all up with painter's tape. But I'll be honest with you, as precise as this spray nozzle is on this container, you really don't need to do much. And I know if I get any lacquer on any of my centers, I'll just put them in acetone and let them sit for a few minutes and wipe them off, and it's all good. So I'm going to turn the lathe on low. What about, well, maybe 500. And I want to stay back about 8 to 10 inches. And I'm going to put that spritz on there. I'm going to let it dry. As you can see, it's kind of lingering a little bit. The towel's going to catch a lot of the overspray. I like to do this. If I had my vacuum at home, I would have it back here and sucking in any fumes, and then it's just non-existent. There's no problems. Each time I'm going to stop, I'm going to feel it. It's already dry. My theory behind this is as long as the lathe is turning, it allows me to get an even coat across it. I'm not overpowering one side of it, turning it by hand and spraying again. So I'm not getting sags or drips.
In thinking about that the other day, I'm heavily math oriented. At 600 RPM, because it's an easy number, your lathe is turning 10 revolutions per second. So if you're squirting something and you say, well, maybe I missed the back, it's not possible. At 10 revolutions a second, you're going to hit everything.
And I can see the shine line already from here.
Yeah, I mean, it goes on great. And so let me, once more, let me put it on a little thicker this time, just to kind of give you an idea of what it would take to really mess this up. Because honestly, it'll make you look good. I mean, all you're doing is pushing the trigger down. So let me even turn the lid up just a hair more. I mean, that's a pretty heavy coat.
And it's a very shiny object now. I can see it from here very well.
And there's no runs in it. It just lays on there. So the nice thing about this product is, obviously, you don't want to put real heavy, thick coats. You want to layer it up there. But my point behind that was, if you accidentally put a little bit of extra on there, it's not ruining anything. You're just going to have to wait a little bit longer for it to dry. You want to make sure each coat is dry before you build the next. And what I did, I applied 5 coats. I made sure it was good and dry. And then you let it sit for 24 hours to fully cure. Now, I had somebody...
Which is so much different than most lacquers, where, like my traditional lacquer finish, it takes me 2 weeks.
Yeah, absolutely.
I literally let most of my lacquer finishes cure. I was talking to Rick about that when he was talking about this product. That was the most shocking thing to me.
Yes.
Is I let my normal lacquer products, like the mills and stuff like that, I literally get them done and I let them sit 2 weeks.
You have to. Yeah, you have to let that lacquer fully cure, everything else evaporate that's in it, so that you've got that proper finish. And I had somebody actually ask me the other day about it. And they said, isn't it just easier to put a glue boost finish on the CA instead of waiting 24 hours to finish a pen? I said, well, it is, but it's an alternative. How many people have CA allergies? How many people just, maybe they're working with something on this. If I were to do something on here, apply decal or something that may react to the CA. So how are you going to finish it? You want something durable that's going to hold up, and that's it.
Speaking of that, I haven't tried it, but I think that would be fantastic.
You want to go to the overhead?
Yeah, I think that would be fantastic for doing like
Thank you, Dean.
water for labels and decals.
Oh, absolutely. And then if you want to set that back up
Yeah.
there. Yeah, you can see the shine line in it, and that's just 3 coats. This will go on, it will dry, and then what I would do, I would apply 5 coats on this, depending on the wood, right? So the first thing I didn't mention I should have is, this wood's naked. If I were using a wood that were maybe more porous, open grain, this is box elder and this is red oak. So if I had to do something with one of these, because they're a little more porous, I would probably seal them with a shellac or ultra thin. If I didn't want to use ultra thin, I would use, something, say, in the shellac. But if I were going to use, but if I need to seal it myself, I would just use the ultra thin CA to seal all that, and then I would apply my lacquer finish. So what that's going to do is it's going to seal all these pores and give you that smooth surface that you want to build up on.
What this is what five coats of just shooting it 5 times. That's not.
Well, I like my favorite. Hang on, Dean. I like Betty's question that says, "Is this lawyer compatible with oily exotics?" Having fun with you, Betty. Having fun. So the couple questions are, well, let's get to the one Betty had. Is this, and I'm having fun, Betty, is this lacquer compatible with oily exotics?
Well, yeah, like anything, you're going to have to wipe them down. You're going to have to remove that surface oil, and I would suggest using acetone. Wipe them down real well.
Yep.
And you'll see the oil on the rag, especially if you're doing something with color in it, say Cocobolo. You're going to have that reddish purple oil on the. Go ahead. So yeah, it's all going to work. You just have to prepare the surface like you would anything else. That's the one thing I know, especially with new turners. Everybody, they want that perfect answer. When do I do this? And I need it to work all the time. That's not finishing, and that's why we have 3 consistencies with the glue boost, fill and finish, and now we have the Lacquer Shot flash coat. It's just another tool in your toolbox to apply it to when you need it. I don't want to get ahead of myself on the ultra thins, but we will go over more. Oh, absolutely. Absolutely. In fact, I think the lacquer finish is going to be more of a, how do I want to say this, Mark?
More tolerant to the cold.
Absolutely. Absolutely. So they're using lacquer on furniture. They're using on just about everything out there. CA is my go-to. Glue Boost Fill and Finish is my go-to pen finish. It works. I like it. It's always my first choice. But if I were concerned about something maybe being in and out of the fridge or being extremely large, I'm going to go to the lacquer, the flash coat, because, well, you've seen how easy it was to put on the wood. And I'm going to finish it the same way, only I'm going to wait 24 hours for it to fully cure.
Yeah, and in my case, if I wanted to answer this question, much like you, I will stick with the CA products on pens because I like the effect that 4 coats later, 5 coats later, I'm done and everything is done on it. When I'm going to my larger things, and Dean, I'll ask you in a couple minutes to put up some of the other stuff that I do. That extra day and having the day to wait for that to cure out. But that's still better than the 2 weeks. So
Absolutely.
that's why I'm sticking to the products.
And you know what's nice? If I have to wait a day to buff or micro mesh, that just gives me that much more time to make something else. So, I'm not going to sit and stare at lacquer drying and curing, right? I'm not going to watch paint dry. I'm going to move on to something else. And that's the nice thing about it is it needs that time. So as you allow that to cure, it gives you ample opportunity to make another one or something different.
So another question comes up. Sorry, Dan, that I'm stealing your thunder. Another question comes up from Mark, and it's basically the cold checking formula. And you and I both played with the cold checking formula months ago, or probably a year ago. We were talking about the cold checking formula. You want to give a little bit of what we found with it? I mean, it's a great product.
Oh, absolutely.
But for doing it on go ahead.
I'll tell you, the first time I used the cold checking lacquer, the first thing I thought was, oh my God, I can't believe how nice this comes out of a can. And it sprays great. It lays down nice. I think personally, it is more advantageous to flat work than it is to lathe turnings because we're dealing with such a small surface. It's really hard to see. And Mark and I collaborated on a pen mill with this, and Mark had turned a pen mill. And I wanted to make it look a pepper mill, not a pen mill, but a pepper mill. And it was a nice sized pepper mill. And I wanted to give it a vintage antique look to it. So I stained it and I put the paint on and I distressed the paint. And I wanted the finish to crack to give it some age. And it did crack. I had some checking going on. but it was really difficult because I think I couldn't build it on as heavy as I
Yeah.
needed it, and it was round, so it was very hard to see it. I think the cold check formula is going to work great for those guys that building flat work, where you can actually, it's flat, you can see it, but on round it's really hard to see it. So although it, like I said, it sprayed beautifully and I thought it was a phenomenal finish, it was just hard to see the checking on the round mill. So
Well, but the good news is the pepper mill went to a neighbor almost immediately.
absolutely. And so I painted sunflowers on it, and
Yep.
I had the paint itself was distressed, and she loved it. It was perfect. So
So go ahead, Dean. You have a couple more questions, I think.
So for a pen, personally, I would use Glue Boost all the way.
Yep.
But it really comes down to what you want, right? So, like I said, I've had so many people say, I don't want to use CA because I want to feel wood. I don't want to feel the plastic or the acrylic barrier between the wood. And I don't care what finish you put on a pen. We've said this before. There's a finish on this pen. It looks like wood because I'm seeing through the finish, and it might not be as high in gloss, but you're not feeling the wood. You're feeling the finish. It's your mind that's telling you what you want to feel and know, right? So the lacquer, real quick, if you want to set that next to the pen.
Sure.
One thing I did do on this is I wanted to get a multi finish on this. So it's kind of hard to see with our lighting, but the end furthest away, the lighter end, there you go. I actually knocked the shine down with some 4-aught steel wool. And this had 5 coats of the lacquer on it. I didn't do any prep work. This is Indian rosewood. I sprayed it. I let it cure for 24 hours. And then I lightly sanded it. I didn't put a lot of effort into this because I was using it basically for a demo piece. But I just wanted to show that it's hard to see in this lighting, but it's more of a satin finish towards that lighter end and more of a higher gloss at the other, but it's still a great finish. But you can knock that shine down real easy. You don't have to always leave them real high and glossy, though. You can make them look however you need it.
So, Dean, can you hear us?
Oh,
Okay.
okay.
Oh no. So because there's two comments in there that says cannot hear the question or hear, and Larry said that can't hear what are you saying?
Yeah, I
Can
think
you
it
hear
was
us
he,
now?
but it said he.
Oh, okay.
My mic was turned down for them, so they can hear you. I just
Okay.
double checked YouTube.
Oh, and the other thing, just for everybody to know, yeah, okay, you can't hear Dean. Dean is also talking directly to us. We have headsets on. Thank you, William.
Okay. All right.
Or
So
Bell.
so yeah, when it comes to, you can go back to us.
Okay.
When it comes to something with open grain, it's gonna be your choice. What your plan of attack is, and for me, it's gonna be ultra thin to seal it, and then depending on how deep the grain is, I may use the medium consistency to self level that all off, and then I sometimes find myself going in and sanding that all level, because a lot of times if I put blue in specific areas to fill a hole or not, I'll feel that bump. So I'll knock it all down level, and then I'll build the rest of my finish on it. So I'm not sanding on all of my finish.
And the other thing, just being completely transparent about it, is especially with pens, I will tell you, I'm going to follow Glue Boost on almost all my pens, because I also have a bunch of other things that I can do with it then.
Yep.
And we'll talk about that coming up. I can do tinting.
Yep.
And I have that. I can get a much better consistent finish on, and we're going to talk about this coming up in about a half hour. I can get a much better consistent finish, and I know this is taboo, but on my acrylics and things like that. And everybody says you don't need to put a finish on an acrylic. I say you do.
Oh, yeah.
Not on all my acrylics, but I'll talk about that when we got that coming up.
Yep.
When you're talking about open grain, Betty, you will not do something wrong if you put thin CA on it while you're turning it. It's one of those things where they can argue whether you need it or not. But when I was preparing for this, and I wanted to do a quick pen just to find out, because I haven't used the product much at all. Well, I haven't used it at all. I just got it yesterday. So I made a quick pen out of a nice piece of burl. Burls, of course, do have some open grain in them. So at that point, I used the ultra thin glue boost to fill those voids. And from there, I went directly, not even sanding, just went directly to putting the lacquer shot finish on it. I sprayed it 5 or 6 times and let it sit for the rest of the night, and it came out beautifully. So you don't have to, there is no have to. If you want to do anything to fill voids, yes, you can use the ultra thin, and you will get a good result even if you use it underneath the lacquer.
Yeah, and like Bob mentioned too, it kind of goes back to the same as these embedded objects. If you're turning a blank and you start noticing that things are chipping out, maybe it's such an open grain that you're getting tear outs. First off, sharpen your tool, and secondly, apply a coat of ultra thin. Let it soak in, spray your glue dry, and then go back to turning it, and you'll see how smooth of a finishing cut you can get out of that.
You know, and I hate to mention something else, but another technique is if you're using carbide tools, go to a negative rake cutter on those things. They're far less aggressive. On a lot of those embedded object type things, I will use a negative rake cutter on it because it's just far less aggressive on it, and I don't get the chipping and tearing out that I have in
Will
the
you
past.
put that pen on
Sure.
now? So this last pen I'm going to show you real quick. This is a pen that I made when I was using this this new lacquer shot, and nope, there we go.
50-50 chance.
So this was a straight grain, plain piece of hard maple, had no character to it, wouldn't have done anything other than being a piece of scrap. And so what I did, I turned it down, I sanded the blank, I got it all nice and smooth. I applied a little bit of shellac just to go in there and fill any grain because I didn't want my colors to bleed. And these were all acrylic paints that I applied, but I sealed all of this with the new lacquer shot, and 5 coats over this stuff. It leveled out great. I've been carrying and using this pen since I made it, and it just.
Can you go back? I don't think you covered it real. That is, each one of those things are hand painted acrylic paint.
Yeah. So it's kind of a. Yeah, I just want to move to where you see a little bit of a shot. There we go. I don't know if it's out of focus, but it's.
No, it looks good. Looks
So-
good on all these.
Yeah, I mean, this is just another option you can do with some of that plain wood. You know, get yourself some colored paints and a paintbrush. Let your lathe run fairly low, 500-600, and then just start touching areas with a little bit of paint, and you can smooth it out and make overlapping stripes. And that's just kind of what I did with that. So
Harold commented that it's got a nice 1950s plaid look to it. The
That was-
50s called and wanted their pen back.
honestly, that's exactly what I was going for. So my wife is a huge fan of anything retro, and she liked the colors. And so I thought I might as well make a pen that somebody's going to want. Well, unfortunately, I almost didn't get to leave with it. She seen it on the table and she said, well, that's really nice. And I said, well, you can have it after I make a few more. So, and I'm going to probably shoot a YouTube video on how to make pens like this. It's so simple, but lacquer allowed me to seal all that paint in without CA smearing it or removing it from this wood surface.
This might be a topic
So-
you can cover at the MPG.
I will definitely.
In what demo do you
Will
have?
be the demo where it's pens without casting, and this will be one of the topics. And the nice thing about it is I didn't like the first set of stripes I put down, so I took a little bit of denatured alcohol and wiped across it and removed all of them and started over again. So the lacquer allowed me to seal everything in. It leveled out real well. And then the next day I went over the blank with some steel wool and knocked it all down nice and smooth, polished it up, and assembled it. So
And the 50s pen is available at a 50s price of only $7, 1950. That would be about $150, 2025. So $150 you got it. It's a $5 pen.
yeah, and honestly, I mean, a pen like that will sell all day long at a craft show or,
Yep.
or a pen show, you know, in a
It's
booth.
different.
And it's so easy to make.
Yep.
And you can make a dozen of them, all different colors.
Yep.
So
When people are asking about using it on other other surfaces. John, I cranked up your opal.
Yeah.
Do you want to put a CA finish on top of your opal?
Absolutely.
Oh, look at that. First
All right,
try.
so what I'm dealing with here, this is Alumilite clear, and it's cast over an opal. This is rose opal is the name of it.
Can you hear John from
turn this
the people
Oh, okay.
outside? Can you hear John?
Go ahead. No.
Okay.
I
So
think it
what
should
I'm
be
going to
okay.
do,
Okay, thank you. He's facing away from the mic. That's the reason I asked.
what I would normally do, this blank isn't turned to finish size, but if I leave it a little oversized, it gives you more surface to see. I'll find my glasses real quick. So how I would handle this is, after I turn it and I sand it to the size I want, I always turn the lathe on high, and I use 4/0 steel wool. So this is moving about 3600 RPMs. I come underneath, and I'm just going to remove any scratches that were left by the 600 grit sandpaper. Let's get rid of this blue tape too. So I've got a fairly smooth, but I can see abrasive scratches in here from the steel wool. So what I do is I roll up a paper towel and I use the end and I work my way back. So I'm going to take the teal ultra thin. I'm going to turn the lathe on. Now here's the important part. Turn the lathe low so that you don't throw all that glue back at you. Don't ask me how I know that, but I've got a face shield with speckles all over it now that I can't use because I'm looking around all the glue spots. So what I like to do is, the lathe is just under 700. I'm going to take, you have to use these whip tips. They are a godsend. They will save your butt from dumping half this bottle out on accident and then gluing yourself to your blank. So I'm going to come in underneath. I don't have Delrin bushings, but I'm going to apply a very little. And as I go across, that stuff is now wicking into all the scratches. It's filling everything, making all nice and transparent. I'm going to go across with the glue dry. I'm going to let that dry.
If you want to switch to Delrin, you can.
I'm not putting that.
That was
much on.
my fault.
It's nice and it's dry. Now, if you notice, I apply everything with the lathe on. Mark and I vary in this. For me, this is just the process that works. I don't have to work all the way around it. It's coming to me. So I apply more on the paper towel, go across the blank, hold the can out. And as I spray that, the blank turns through the mist. So I feel like maybe I can get a little bit more out of that can because I'm not having to do 2 or 3 sprays by turning the blank. Now, I could continue to do this and build this up with maybe 5 coats of the fill and finish, as long as I'm familiar and comfortable with my finishing process, my micro mesh and whatnot. If I'm still learning, I'm probably going to switch to the orange label, the thin, and I can apply my 4 or 5 coats with that. And what that'll do is give me a nice smooth surface to then go back with my steel wool. So we'll do this. The nice thing about this, it's quick. Now, because I have a layer sprayed on there now, I have a layer of glue dry. Like Mark said before, when I apply the next coat, it's already drying from the blank out. And when I spray it, it's drying from the outer edge in. So you're getting the best of both worlds.
The key to it, it's just a spritz.
Absolutely. So how many times have you seen someone online empty half a can on whatever they're spraying? And I'm like, oh, it's unnecessary. I finished 52 cans with, or 52 pens with 1 can. I had 5 layers of glue boost on all of my acrylics, and I just held it out about 10 inches, 12 inches, gave a light spurts, and I finished 52 pens. So, and the reason I kept track, and it's obviously it's not this can, but every time I'd finish a blank, I'd put a hash mark on the can. When I got done, I had 52 hash marks for 52 actual pen barrels. So as you can see, I mean, it goes on beautifully. It gives you a nice transparent look. It has filled all of those sanding scratches. It's built up a layer. Because this is acrylic, I can do a standalone finish with this stuff. If it were a hybrid blank, I'd want to go to something a little thicker and build up a little more of a layer. Say the orange label, the thin. If I'm dealing with woods that have knots or crevices or holes, or I'm dealing with something with pits on it, then I'm going to want to come in here and fill a lot of this stuff with the medium. But because this is thin, I can apply my coats. Now what I can do is turn the lathe on high, come back with my steel wool. Now here's the tricky part, right? It's not just do it, but you have to have a feel for it. You have to know, you just want to let it touch it. I'm not pushing hard into it. I'm not trying to cut all that back off. I just want to touch the blank. And what that does, it removes any of those spiral ridges.
It
From-
denibs it.
Yes, from applying the layer on it. As you move across it, it naturally leaves a little bit of a ridge of these rings. So you knock that down, come in here. Now, because we're talking, this takes a little bit. At home, I'd have been done already because it's just a process. So after I get that done, I'm going to switch to my micro mesh, and I use the cloth back ones just because that's what I'm familiar with. I'm going to take a little bit of water. I'm going to turn the lathe back down.
Several comments about being heavy-handed and how difficult it is to get scratches and so forth when you're pushing too hard.
Oh, absolutely.
The two places of heavy-handed is that, and the other thing is when you're using that spray.
Yeah.
I find so many people think you're using it like a paint can,
Yep.
and you're just it's.
One quick spritz.
So I put just a drop of water on the cloth. I cut them down to size so that way it's not overhanging and hitting the metal. I can work this back and forth. I'm going to turn the lathe up. Now here's another thing is you're going to know the speed that you work best at, right? For me, it's about 1500. I like to come in here and work it. It all depends on your process. I need a little more water. There we go. But you'll feel if it's smooth or not. You'll feel whether or not you have enough glue, because all of a sudden if it's spotty and you feel it catching, you may have sanded through or maybe had a spot that you didn't coat well enough. You don't spend a lot of time on each grit. Just work your way through. So one of the reasons that I always apply the fill and finish on an acrylic pen is because I feel like it heightens that blank. It adds a protective surface. One thing you have to remember is just because it's acrylic doesn't mean that it's hard. The Glue Boost fill and finish system, when it cures, it's harder than the resin. When you're dealing with epoxy and urethane resins, you can turn them down, they can look nice, but if you put them under a magnifying glass or you hold them up to the light, you're going to see there's scratches there. And as you use these pens, they're going to dull a little quicker because that resin is softer than the CA. So the fill and finish Glue Boost cures to a harder surface, so it will shine and polish up better than naked resin. And it'll hold up. 5-6 months down the road, you realize your naked resin pen that you just finished looks a little dull. Well, you're going to have to take it to a buffing wheel or put some polish on it or something to really get that to shine. But with the CA, I can take a cloth and just kind of buff it, so to speak, and you'd be surprised at how quick that luster will come back.
Well, and the other thing is, it's a challenge, right? Is if you have to go to a buffing wheel and try to buff an assembled pen, and you ever hit the component set, nothing good's going to come out of that.
No,
What's the name of that blank?
that is Rose Opal.
For those of you who didn't know, that's Rose Opal. And yes, it is one of John's blanks that's available on Exotic Blanks. But as it was spinning, I was thinking there's something people would probably want to know.
So I I developed that blank because I was looking for a background for the Marine uniform metal buttons, and I already had I had the blue Galaxy opal for the Air Force and the Navy, and I was using creating a green one for the Army. But I needed something that had some red and some rich color in it, and it has red and gold that kind of moves throughout the blank. So
You've also done it for my hiking medallions.
I
for-
did.
For
And
the Marine hiking medallion, and oh my God, is it gorgeous!
so that's basically what you're going to get out of Glue Boost, right? You're going to get a nice, hard, durable finish, and it's going to hold up to wear and tear. It's not going to dull on you because it's harder than the resin itself. And Mark, can you see that in there, the difference?
No.
We may have to go over here to the
Yeah, go ahead,
overhead
the other one.
if you want to pop to this real quick. I'm hoping we can see this difference. So yeah, you can see
I think they can.
right here at this spot is the center of the blank. So here's what I did. I cast this blank. This is urethane resin. Jeez. Get it to stop moving.
Alumilite.
There we go. So this is urethane resin, which is Alumilite clear. I colored it. I poured it. I turned it. I sanded it. But I applied Glue Boost from here over to get a nice shine. And from here back, I left it naked. I then micro meshed it and I put it on the buffing wheel. And you can see the difference it makes in the color. Now, since then, this thing's been handed around and whatnot at demos, but it really gives you an idea of, because this resin, our resins are softer than we expect. It magnifies the color. It gives it a darker, deeper, rich color, but it also protects it. So this side holds a shine better. When I initially buffed this, it was all pretty shiny, but you can really tell right here at the center the difference in color that you get by adding that Glue Boost fill and finish over your acrylics. It's something as simple as
Okay.
a color blank.
Oop, sorry, I thought you were at a break there, Sean.
Yep, I'm good.
Why don't we answer a question? And I'm going to put the next lacquer shot drawing, and then while we do that, the question
Oh no,
is
I think you should wait another 10 minutes, Dean.
why? I promised them after a bunch of likes that I would put it up, and they did a good
Alright.
job on likes. So
Well, I guess the problem is nobody likes me, so okay.
the question is,
Nobody
and
wants to
wet
be
sanding
everybody.
doesn't take off the Glue Boost finish? Question mark.
No.
Type winner.
So,
No.
so let me see here.
Glue Boost does not come off easily. You build it 4 or 5 coats. That's all you need. But then when you decide to sand it and so forth, no, it's not going to come off easily. It comes off if you really have to get it off. But don't worry about taking it off with normal.
You know, if you use micro mesh, you're never going to have to worry
That's
about it.
I-
And all we're trying to do is de-valley it. But remember
Just
the
smooth
beauty.
it out.
Yep, the beauty of it is it's self-leveling in itself.
Yep.
And so maybe that's one of the reasons when I first started with it, playing with it. You know, when I was first starting with it, it was that self-leveling. That was the godsend for me, that I didn't have to go and sand anything anymore.
Mhm.
Well,
I go immediately to micro mesh. I may, depending on if the wood that I'm using, I may have to go to a 400 grit wet, dry, wet.
Mhm.
But it's the lightest of touch on there. I'm not pressing on it, and so that's one of the biggest things with sanding. You know, you could do a whole video. I think I've got a video up on YouTube on sanding,
Mhm.
and it's just simply you're not intended. John, you know my joke.
yes.
It's
sanding
sandpaper.
paper, not
It's
shaping.
not shaping paper. So I'm not there to try to reshape my blank. I'm not trying to take out something I didn't like. If I did that, take a minute, go back in, cut it off with your tools,
Mhm.
and then use sandpaper to sand.
So real quick though, if you're, especially on a wood blank, if you've got something with boys, maybe you're turning a Buckeye burl or something that's got a knot or a crack in it, you can put that medium consistency fill and finish, the blue label, on there and build it up thicker
Yep.
than what you need, and then sand it all smooth. Take some 320 sandpaper and just work across it and knock it all down nice and level. There's nothing says you can't build it up thicker than what you want. And then like any wood or acrylic blank, sand it down smooth and level. And then if you want, put on some of that ultra thin to fill your cracks, and then go into your finish polishing.
And
That will
one
work
thing,
particularly well if you have, after you finish turning your wood, if you see that there is a pit in your wood where you didn't realize it, but you're close to a burl or something, and you have a low spot, that's the time that if you take some of the blue and fill a little bit, you got to be a little careful because you don't want to build up air in it, in the hole. But that's essentially the time that if you make it too large, then come back and sand it down, you can get rid of that void.
But exactly on that point, now I was going to say almost the same thing, Dan. Is I see a lot of people when they have that void try to fill that void with one drop,
One
No, you
drop.
can't do
and
that.
you're going to drop it. You're going to peel it up,
Yep.
and I don't care what
You're gonna
product
leave
you're going to do.
a miniature air bubble or
Yep.
something in there.
You're going to get a
or-
pocket in there, and it's
Yes.
just not. So one thing, if you to only take one thing away, if you get a void into something, small doses, drop, build it up, shoot it with glue dry, build it up, shoot it with glue dry, build it up, and you're going to see that you're going to be much happier with the way that you're going to get that void filled.
But the nice thing is, if you mess it up, you just sand it off and do it again.
Yep.
Yeah,
Right.
yeah,
You're not hurting anything. There's times that I've actually overturned a blank and then built the layers up because I wanted to apply something on the surface, a decal, and then I built up over top of that with the CA. And I might have put 10 coats on there to get it to the thickness that I want, but then I just sand it back down to my bushings. So
Well, and you remember when we first, for those of us who are old or if you've done this a long time,
I just started young. I'm not old.
but when we first started this, do you remember people when they were doing CA finishes when they first came out actually advocated cutting below the bushings
Yes.
because I'm going to put on 20 coats
Yeah.
Right.
and I'm going to build it up to the bushing.
Yes.
Now with some of this new stuff that's out there, I'm right at my bushings and I don't worry about it.
Did you change anything?
Okay,
that
so-
was from your YouTube channel.
Me personally,
Yeah. that's
no,
right.
I still. So if you notice, I still use the exact same technique that I did 5 years ago when I cut that YouTube video on it. I enjoy watching the way you do it, Ed, and the way
That's right.
John does
That's
it. We've got some different techniques, but if you want to throw that pen back up, I'm pretty happy with this one. Yeah,
Yep.
put it back up under the light.
Well, that's the nice thing about this product. There's no wrong way to use it.
How'd that happen? That's pretty good.
So while you're putting that up,
I just
George-
love the finish on that one, and that is done the exact same way that I do it in all my videos. Lathe off, 2 coats of orange, and then a couple coats of blue. I think on that one, because I wanted a little bit more luster on it, I put 3 coats of blue on there. Steel wall, everything you saw there. The only thing that I do on it when I'm done, and you and I had this conversation literally 5 minutes before we do it, is that after I'm done, I will take it to the BO buffing system, but I will only use the Carnauba wax wheel. I'll only use the rightmost wheel on it because I'm just trying to get a wax coat on it on top of it. I am not going to use the other ones because, as you said, it will actually degrade the sanding because those other ones are more coarse than the Carnauba one.
So our
You're gonna
second
say
winner is
something?
George Harrison. Henderson. Harrison's a little different. And you answered the question about your YouTube channel. George also asked about using Glue Boost on the antler. Several people said it works
We're
great.
actually going to talk. We're actually going to talk about that in about 10 minutes.
Perfect. Congrats, George.
Absolutely, congrats, George. You guys are gonna love this stuff.
Yes, you really are going to love it.
And all we ask too is please shoot us an email, shoot us a text. I think the coolest part. You want to go back to the camera?
First off, so I sprayed it a few minutes ago. Do you even still smell it?
No, I didn't
I don't-
install it when you were doing it.
No,
we're,
no.
We're 5
I'm-
feet away from it in some cases, and no, you don't smell it at all.
No, I've
He is shooting the other direction.
I've never shot lacquer and not had to leave the shop.
Yeah, that's right.
So great stuff.
Well, I used to use lacquer a lot before anything was available in the late 90s. One of the major problems that I had with it was at that time I was doing things in my basement at home. It wasn't a question of how long does it take to dry. It was a question of will it ever dry.
Right.
It was, you could wait 2, 3, 4 weeks. Now it wasn't the basement, I grant you that, but we did have air conditioning. So, this really is an amazing product. When I used it last night, I was shocked at the fact that it dries, probably 30 seconds for the first 3 or 4 coats. while it's still taking some. And I did have the thin glue boost on it to start with, so it wasn't that absorbent. But try it; it's an amazing product. It really is. It's an alternative, and as they're going to talk about shortly, really a good product for things that are much larger. So,
You know what? Actually, let's do that right now.
Okay, go
And
for
so for those of you who are still with us, what our thought is, what we're going to do is we're going to take a look at it on other products. Then we're going to talk a little bit about buffing, but I think we covered it. And then we're going to someone asked a little bit also on the last call that they wanted to talk a little bit some different kind of acrylics that are out there, and we're going to talk about acrylics, but we're going to talk about them in a different way. And we're going to talk about finishing on them.
The question was, when we got it, how can you tell which ones are various different kinds of acrylic? So I've asked Mark to bring a number of different kinds of acrylic pens with. So yes, the person who asked that, if you're actually watching, that will be covered in some detail. There were really about 3 people who wanted to see that. So,
and we're going to talk a little bit about finishes on those too.
okay.
When I would supplement the normal finish that's on there,
Yep.
and when I would go to the other one. Hey, so someone asked very early on, do we use this on bigger products? Have we tried it on bigger? Dean, can you throw up the Wow, I shouldn't have said could you throw up. Dean, could you put up the peppermill picture?
I can. I just apologize to Ed because he's about to disappear.
Oh.
So
That's an improvement. Let's keep it that way.
There's a peppermill, and to me, a peppermill is the perfect opportunity to use a lacquer-based finish on it. And then this one also extends by the fact that it's a hybrid, right? So it's burl, it's got some acrylic on it. I love being able to do that. I love being able to make the peppermills, and I will just because when I was doing this, and I know that I talked to Rick about trying some other stuff on it, I typically seal it off with with the shellac.
Mhm.
I'll seal it off with the shellac, and then I will let it sit for a day or two, put it back on the lathe, and do some steel wool on it. Pretty much just steel wool, and then it's got a lacquer finish on top of it.
Mhm.
And so that's a good one. And then the other one, if you're doing it for other things like handles, Dean, you want to throw up the handle picture? And if you're coming to the MPG or you're coming to the AAW this year, these are some handles I made, and you can see they're hybrids. And so they're half wood, half acrylic, and the finish on them is just fantastic. This is a barbecue set, and I know Ed, that I got the barbecue set from you guys, and it's a barbecue set, and I just love how that came out. I was able to take a blank that I handmade and cast it, and it's got, once again, to incorporate what John's talking about, it's Alumilite. So I used Alumilite, and I mixed a couple different colors of Alumilite, cast it in a blank, then took it out, put it on my lathe, turned it down to the dimensions that I wanted to, and to give it that nice, beautiful bump in color. I could have clearly, because they're handles, I could have clearly did these as a CA finish on there, but what I wound up doing was I shot it with lacquer.
And Bill wants to know if you're going to be barbecuing at the MPG.
Well, Donna might be the barbecue. Donna does all the cooking in the house, but so those are a couple different. Hopefully, I answered the question that we had kind of early on. Yes, we use this on a bunch of different products. Just under complete transparency, we just got the product within the last couple of weeks, so we haven't been playing with it on everything that I do. But I'm going to tell you, it looks like it's going to be my go-to finish.
That barbecue set, by the way, is pretty good quality. It's when we looked at stuff coming in, that particular product, if you like doing outdoor stuff, is a product that you can be happy to sell at craft shows or whatever. Go ahead.
So I'm trying to read the questions.
Oh, the question: what's your storing requirements for lacquer? I didn't buy enough blanks last week.
Storage requirements for lacquer shot. I don't know that there's anything. I mean,
Other than like anything else, just
yeah,
like you would any spray paint, I would assume, as long as you're not putting it in freezing conditions or excessive heat.
You should be fine.
Yeah.
Well, Rick
says a cool place.
Well,
yeah. I mean, I have a shelf in my basement in the back of my casting room that I store that along with my other other sprays.
Well,
So,
and your house is cool.
Yeah.
You've got a cool house.
yeah, I mean, my shop is an average during the summer. It's
I'm
probably
just kidding.
mid 70s. During the winter, it was 50s.
Yeah.
But
Basically the same place that you put your stabilizing fluid and your casting juice and all the rest of those things. Keep it under 85, and you're fairly safe. And of course, not freezing.
yeah, absolutely not freezing.
We I sometimes do not ship from here. I think probably most of you know it. But being in Wisconsin, if the temperature gets ridiculously cold, which it shouldn't now for a while, we will stop shipping so that you don't have to worry about the stuff freezing on its way to you.
So for the person who asked about using it on bigger products, that's just a quick sampling of some of the stuff that I do and that I've been playing with it on. And I will also have a video coming up now where I've done it on spalted tamarind. I've got a pepper mill that I did in spalted tamarind, and I'm just working on doing some of the refinements, and I'll have a new video up for Rick and maybe on my website, on my YouTube page also, to talk about the finish that I put on it.
You want to get into buffing? We're 7:30.
Yeah, let's do a quick couple minutes on buffing, and then I'll talk about some of the other things. And there's so just coming up, we're going to talk about buffing. We're going to talk about acrylics,
Yep.
and then we're going to talk about some modifications to pens that you can do
Cool.
using some of the techniques we talked about.
Sounds like a plan to me.
Okay.
This is just a beautiful picture of a beautiful pen. Oh, I'll do this as long as I've got the opportunity. I told you I made a quick blank last night. This is just a piece of maple burl that I had. I have a fair amount of maple burl laying around. And as you can see there, this is about 6 coats of the lacquer shot. I did not wait a long time in between the first 4. Once the first 4 were done, I slowed down. When you touch the blank as it's spinning, if it's still a little tacky, don't do the next coat yet. But it was an awful lot faster than I expected it to be. I thought it would take much, much longer than it actually did. So I did the 4, let it sit for probably 5 minutes, came back and did 2 more. And that's what I have currently. That would have been 24 hours ago, almost exactly now. So you can see that it gives you a nice shine. Now, what I would do to this normally is either take it to the buffing. Well, I would take it to the buffing set, and I do AAA white diamond and regular. The last one has nothing on it, really. The last one is just to try to take off the stuff from the other 2. So that's one way of doing it. And as you can see, it gave me a good result. Are you going to need that camera facing the other direction?
While we're getting John up, Terry,
turn
one
it
real quick thing. Terry, I see that you haven't got your order from last week. I read your email. I sent you one back telling you that I was going to talk to Dawn on it. I did talk to Dawn on it. Dawn promised me that she's going to give you an email or a call in the next, either tonight or tomorrow. She's gonna shoot you an email and explain what the challenge is there. They know that you haven't got it, and they promise you they're gonna get it.
Okay, that is
Pretty close. Extreme close up.
isn't it?
Next one. Keep going. 1.
1.
There we go. All right.
Oh, of course it's 1.
We're juggling cameras.
We're very good. The guy on the camera, i.e. me, is screwing up. So John is now on for buffing.
All right, so we got a few questions about buffing in the survey, so we wanted to touch bases on that as well. This is the Beal buffing system. This is the I think these are flannel. This is the Triple E. This is the white diamond, and then this is a flannel, I believe, cotton blend. So I leave that naked. And what I like to do, I learned this from Mark Dreyer actually. It's a great idea because I used to try to hold all these little pen blanks in here, and then they would catch and ricochet across the floor or break. And take an old pen mandrel and a couple of Delrin bushings and some 7mm tubes, and basically just suspend it in the middle. And I like it with the knurl on the bottom here because it gives me something to hold on to. Now, as I work this blank in here, this blank's going to spin a little bit. I can control how much it spins by how much pressure I put on that top tube. So this, I hold basically the top tube, and I allow this to spin, but not as fast as the wheel. So that way I'm covering this whole surface, but it's still, the wheel's spinning quicker than the blank is. I don't turn it on all the way. I usually put it up there somewhere around 26 to 3,000. And I don't overly charge the blade, the wheel. I'll just come in here with a little bit. Now, one thing you need to know is if you haven't used it for a while and you still have compound on it, it may get a little hard or coarse. So what you want to do is come in there with a block of wood. I didn't bring it, but come in here with a block of wood and just kind of hit into that and knock off that excess.
The other thing that I use is it's a great little thing for knocking off the wax on those things. Is the sanding block for drywall.
Yeah.
Go to Home Depot, get one of those sanding blocks for drywall, and they're basically a very coarse, hard sponge, and it knocks that off perfectly.
Nice, because you want to soften the wheel up, so you don't want a hard, heavy wheel. Well, this is the acrylic, and this is the blank that we just put the finish on. How I would do is I would come in underneath, and I go in a slight angle, and I roll it back and forth, and then I switch it, and I do that on each one. And then I'm going to hit the cotton last. Now, if I get to a point where I see something I want to work at, I can hold this in and isolate that area. But normally, I let that blank spin. And I don't spend a lot of time buffing.
Here, let's go to this one.
All right. I'm not going to go to a lot of time buffing. But what it does is it knocks down any of them micro scratches that you just can't see, and it really just makes everything pop. And the nice thing about these opal is the more transparent they are, the more reflective they get with light, and you start to see other colors because they'll pick up colors from their surrounding. They'll start to reflect. So I think it's important to get a nice buff on something. And again, because it's the fill and finish, that surface is always going to hold up, right? It's going to be harder than the resin itself. And if you need to repolish that, you can just take a dry cloth and wipe it all down.
Okay.
Okay. All right. Am I better now? Okay, go ahead to this one again. You want to hit this one again? So, apologize for not being able to hear that as we're moving the cameras around. We're having problems with our mics. But the one thing is, at least now that I have a good finish on this, once this pen is assembled, if I notice, if I'm moving this pen around or people are looking at it and you start to notice some smudges, because it's a fill and finish glue boost finish, you can come in here and just polish this back up, and then fingerprints are gone, and it's going to be nice and shiny. The blank is going to hold up much longer because it has that protective finish on it as opposed to just the naked resin. And this, I apply the fill and finish glue boost finish to all of my urethane resin, which is the Alumilite products, and the epoxies. The epoxies are actually softer than the urethane blanks, so it's going to be even harder to get a finish. I'm not saying you can't, but you're going to spend a lot more time buffing and sanding and polishing, trying to get that luster that you're not going to keep it as long. So by applying the glue boost finish, I've never had an issue with it.
Hybrids. I
Hybrids,
apply it on hybrids.
The
Deer antler.
embedded objects. So deer antler is another nature of itself too, because it's a bone, it's porous. So as you turn that, you're going to expose some of that inner marrow, and you're going to want to seal that. So I always use the fill and finish, seal it real well. One thing about deer antler, though, is I don't usually want it overly shiny. I want more of maybe just a little shinier than natural antler. So I like to go in there. If I do apply the entire surface with CA, I'm only going to use the fill and finish to seal the pores. And then I'm going to go in there, and I'm not going to buff it to a real high gloss. I'm going to knock that down with a little bit of steel wool just to give it more of a natural look. So, but you know,
Rob, the lacquer shot tells you on the can to wait 24 hours. So the answer to how long do you wait before buffing should be 24 hours. That's time for it to cure. You know the difference.
And that's been your experience also, right, John?
absolutely.
When you buff, question's been asked of me many times. How much pressure are you putting on that wheel? Now, maybe you can define that by how far in. Push it in a half an inch, you push it in 3/4 of an inch.
It depends.
How fast is it going?
So that's a good question. It's one of those things that it comes down to your individual process. You need to do it a few times to see the results you're getting, and then you're going to know how hard to push into it. I'm not applying real hard pressure. All I want to do is maybe just flex the wheel a little bit. But if I've got something that maybe I didn't sand as well as I needed to, and I hold it up and I see a blemish in there, then I may have to push a little harder to smooth it out. It really all comes down to the individual process. But overall, when you first start, you're not trying to push that blank through the wheel. You just want to make contact with it enough that you feel it, but you're not digging into it, right? The wheel's going to push back. So you're going to feel that resistance, but it comes down to just your touch. You're going to have to experiment with it.
There is some bearing on how hot it gets as well. If you are using a buffing system and you make that blank hot, it's not necessarily going to help you a lot. And the other thing is, not so much now. The resins that are out there now are more heat resistant. But years ago, you could actually melt it while you were doing the.
Oh, yeah.
And the other thing
Even
is
the polyresin still.
ebonite. Ebonite too will pretty much melt, look like junk when you're done with it. So,
Yeah.
And ebonite is probably one of the hardest things to get the scratches out.
You
of.
go to the wheel?
But-
Okay.
Go ahead.
Let's move this back.
Okay. So yes, you're lots of things that you have to consider when you're buffing, but generally the answer that John gives is perfect. You have to experiment with it. You have to do it a few times. When you do it right, buffing can be a tremendous advantage. I've taken some scratches out of pens that I never thought I'd get out with the Triple E wheel. But again, that's one of those things where yes, I take the scratches out by doing a little buffing, then waiting a while, doing a little more buffing without getting the thing hot, so that the scratches start to become a real problem.
So Mark asks that he uses milk paint on pepper mills. Would these products work well on them? I'm gonna be honest with you, Mark. I haven't tried it. I don't know if Glue Boost is still on the call. He can talk about that if Rick wants to talk about that. But Mark, I really don't know. I don't know that any of
Well,
us.
I mean, the milk paints, I've used milk paints over the years, and I don't know why. There's no reason why the lacquer wouldn't work for the milk
right?
paints.
But I just
Absolutely.
haven't tried it.
Yeah, I don't think you have any issues at all, as long as you follow the instructions and allow the milk paint to dry properly before you apply your finish. You should be just fine.
Yeah, and if you try it, please let us know.
Go ahead.
Right. So the last thing that we're going to talk about is a little bit of two last things. We're going to talk a little bit about what people mean when they talk about acrylics, and then we're going to talk about some real quick things that you could do to some wood pens to give you a little bit of difference on them. So I'm going to go to this one. So when people talk about acrylic, most of the time this is what they're talking. And I know that this one's got a little mark on it, but this is what people normally think of as acrylic. And yes, this is the one that I will typically go to as acrylic. But then there are things like this. This is Alumilite. John, you want to talk a little bit about the difference between Alumilite and its structure than what you call a typical acrylic?
Yeah, Alumilite is it's a cuttable, a very smooth cutting, soft resin. It's hard enough to make a pen, but this is basically what any of us can buy in its raw form and cast into a solid. So it's a urethane resin. They also say it's a generic term, Alumilite. That's the company that actually makes these, but they have a urethane side and they have an epoxy side, and they both are castable by us, any of us at home, but there's us on the softer side, so they definitely need a finish.
So this is one no finish really after
Yep.
I'm doing it. You can look at the video I have out there. It's basically I just finish on there, buffing and polishing on it. This one I would highly recommend considering putting a glue boost finish on top of it.
Mm-hmm.
Same with let's just go through some of the other
I mean,
ones.
my personal opinion has always been, if it was a custom made blank, it's going to need a finish. If it's a commercialized blank, you'll know when you cut it how hard it is, because it isn't easy to sand.
Mhm.
And the harder the resin is, the better of a shine you're going to get out of it. So the commercial blanks, yeah, if you have to work to sand it, you're probably going to be fine without a CA finish.
This is one that only Ed will remember, hopefully, is the cat blanks. I love the cat blanks here. I will tell you, if you've ever had this one, it's going to turn like powder.
Yeah.
It doesn't, I can't use a skew, use whatever tool you want to use. It's not going to, the other ones will peel off. This one is going to turn like a powder, but I've never had to put an additional finish on top of
No,
it.
me neither.
I love
They've
it.
always shined.
It's a great shine on here.
Mhm.
The nice thing about this is this form factor that it still comes in is that I used to be able to cut it and do 2 slim lines out of that one.
Yeah.
So I don't know if you're familiar with the cat blanks, but that's also one. This one, I know Ed and I had a long conversation about this one afterwards. This one, once again, it's in the poly family, but it's not a it's the camo blank, and they are all a little bit different.
Acrylic acetate?
Well,
Go ahead, Ed.
There are a lot of different kinds of camo. After our conversation the last time, I kind of did some digging around. Some of them are made very similar to all other commercial blanks. Commercial blanks are typically made in a 4x4 sheet, 4 feet by 4 feet sheet. It is put into a press that is very high pressure. And so what they're doing is they put the resin in and then hit it with a very high pressure, which is why when you take a commercial blank, you'll find that it is more dense in general than your standard blanks. Now, the difference between camo that Mark and I have had a conversation about, some of them seem to be a completely different product. They smell like rubber when you cut it.
That's
So
exactly it.
one of the things people say, how do you know which one's which? Well, how I know which one's which, as soon as I turn that lathe on and hit it with a tool, you can start to smell it.
Yep.
And when you start to smell it, it will smell like rubber or new car smell. That would be your acetates. Lots of different things. It's like cutting any wood. You put the first cut on it, and you know if it's mango or Bethlehem olive wood or whatever. But the fact is that these things, the camos come in a million flavors. So I guess is the best answer. So once you start cutting it, you'll have a pretty good idea of what it's made of. But until that time, it's a crapshoot.
Yeah, the blues and whites I find are typically a little bit easier to turn.
Yeah.
This one, there's going to be work to it.
Mhm.
Yep.
It's going to cut. As I told you, it feels more like I'm trying to turn rubber.
Well, and the problem is it's hard enough it doesn't need a finish, but it's dark enough that all the scratches show.
Yeah.
So I've always applied a finish.
So here's another blank. When we're talking about resin blanks, this one should look familiar to someone in the group.
There you go.
John, you want to give a little talk about that one?
So that is it's a 3D printed blank where the spider web I print on a resin printer and then I cast it in different colored resins. But it's the same as the other color cast that I do. It's a urethane resin. I just add mica powders to it.
So it turns like butter, and I don't know that I need an additional finish on it. If I want to put a CA finish on it, I do.
Honestly, I do, and
It all
only because
depends.
you're dealing with two different densities. The resin print is a little chippier, and I've found over the years that the resins are kind of like some woods where they'll absorb humidity, so they tend to contract and expand. And so I always feel like I need to put something over them, a nice, more than likely, a thicker CA fill and finish, so that way I can't feel the transition later in between the two materials.
So, John, you hit the nail right on the head when you talk about a chippier material.
Oh yeah.
This is inlace
Acrylic.
Acrylaster, which is actually a PR, correct?
Yes.
Polyester
and you
resin.
can see it comes pre-chipped for you. And I will tell you, if you're just starting out, this would not be the. These make beautiful pens.
Beautiful pens.
This is
Yes.
just a gorgeous finish when it's done. But if you're just starting out, this is not one that I'd want. That I would tell you that
They're
you should
brittle.
consider.
I
They
mean,
are
that's the only
brittle.
way to explain them. They're brittle
It's a soft
and a very
delicate
low
touch.
melting point.
Yes.
Because
Yes.
when I first started turning this stuff, I was afraid to cut it because it was so chippy. So I would get it close and then I would sand it. And the problem is the sanding built up heat
that's
and it
true.
literally softened the resin and it
Yeah,
fell
you
right
can
off the tube. So you don't want to get this material hot.
My two take on this one is once you figure out how to turn this,
It's a
nothing is impossible.
true stuff.
You can turn everything. Yeah.
The second thing is this is the number one tile of blank where I tell you don't drill all the way through.
Yes.
Exactly.
Absolutely.
Yep. Yeah, that the reason they did that, it is a good blank if you're turning pens for shows. They can
Yes.
separate color much better than any other blanks that are out there. Their colors are just gorgeous.
Yep.
And you'll find if you talk to the guys who do shows, several that I'm aware of, the thing about that stuff is you can turn it really fast. It'll chip out. It'll look terrible. Who cares?
Once you get it round, you're good.
That's it. You're
Yeah.
trying to get it down as fast as you can. If you're doing shows and if you're a production turner, that's, and I made an awful lot of those and sold an awful lot of them. But boy, I can't begin to tell you how many I threw in the garbage before I made the first one that worked.
Yeah.
So-
I find that once you knock the corners, that's when it's chippiest, trying to knock the corners off.
Yep.
And an option of that would be maybe take it to a belt sander and
Yep.
round it off or cut them off with a belt or with a bandsaw.
It's an excellent opportunity to learn how to use a skew.
Yes.
It really will teach you a lot about how to use a skew.
And you'll know if you're getting them too hot because it starts to build up kind of a foamy sanding dust as opposed to a powder.
And
So-
it smells. When it gets hot, it really will tell you it stinks.
Oh, well, I agree that it makes
Yes.
an absolutely gorgeous blank. It clearly does.
Yep.
It is one of my favorites, and I think I just pointed that out. Bill points out that would you use a negative rate cutter? I will tell you, I typically, even with all the other stuff that I do, I'll start with the traditional cutter to get through the parts that I want, and then when I'm getting down to my more delicate stuff, that's when I typically switch to my negative rate.
The fact that we're making it sound more difficult, let me point out to you that as a vendor in this industry, it isn't unusual for somebody to complain that it was impossible to turn. So what I'm trying to do essentially is get you ready for that. Yes, it's difficult to turn. If you want to develop into a much better turner, then you have to turn the things that are difficult to turn. As I point out to people often in our conversations, nobody's forcing you to turn anything. So yes, once you've got it and you've done it and you're happy with it, you're absolutely right. It's a wonderful product.
It's gorgeous, and I think we hit that one right away.
Yep.
So here's another blank that's out there, and I think it's called Dino
Bone.
Bone, but it's really a true stone.
It is a true stone.
And once again, same thing, exact same characteristics. Much harder to work.
Much harder to work.
Need a little bit of a skill to do it. I wouldn't take it on if I'm new to it. But you can't see it here, but the weight on it is incredible.
Oh yeah,
And
it's
it finishes
like a rock.
gorgeous.
it is like a rock. I
It's a
mean,
rock.
you bang those together and you get a music note quality.
Yep.
And they weren't all the same.
No.
Some had different levels of turning difficulty.
Yes, particularly if you're doing this and you're looking for this stuff. First, it's expensive. So understand that when you take a $25, $28 blank and put it on the lathe and it blows up, that's what's called learning. But the other thing is, if you want to learn how to turn it, start with ones that do not have a lot of pattern on them, and particularly no gold veining. The gold veining is a weak spot, and it will break off easily, particularly as you drill it. If you drill it and it gets warm, forget it. It will fall apart.
I'll also make a suggestion.
Yeah, go ahead. No, go ahead.
I'll also make the suggestion that if I'm doing these, I'm going to try to put it on a component set that has a slightly thicker wall.
Oh yeah.
If I have to go down really, really thin with this, that's where you'll have a little bit of challenge. So Sierra Vistas, on the higher end, because this is going to be a higher end.
Yep.
The Majestics, it's a great one for the Majestic. Believe it or not, a cigar works great for this
Yep.
one. But some of the real ones, component sets that have, especially on the top, if it's a very, very thin wall top
Mhm.
on that cat, it's a little bit more curious as to durability on it.
Well, and the nice thing is it's so heavy. If in a pinch you've got a weapon.
It falls apart with the veining, but if you get a pen out of it, I sold many full-size gentlemen, which wasn't an expensive pen, but I sold them for $350 if I could get one out of Truth Stone. Because essentially you got $25, $30 in the blank, and you'll get a pen out of every 3 or 4 that has that veining.
Well, and the nice thing is that extra money pays for all the ones you blew up.
Exactly. That's the way I always looked at it too. There's a cost of learning.
Yes.
And I went to college. It costs a lot more than how many I've blown up, but it isn't all that much more anymore. So yeah, you're going to blow them up.
So we don't have that much more time. I'm going to just cover a couple little other things real quickly. Hybrids. So this is half wood, half acrylic. I love the hybrid. John showed you exactly the same way that I would do it. This has got a glue boost finish on top of it. I love it for that. Even if it's got a poly resin in here, the glue boost takes very well to the poly resin as opposed to Alumilite. So when I'm casting these, if I'm casting it on my own, if I'm doing a single color, a lot of times I'll use poly. I'll use like a PR. If I'm doing a lot of mixing colors and stuff like that, that's when I'll switch to Alumilite.
Go ahead. Nothing up there.
No, I'm just reading some of the comments. So that being said, I want to cover one last thing that we're going to talk about. I want to try to be respectful of your time, but I want to talk a little bit about some news out here that go along with some of the things that we did. So how many people here have ever, I don't have just a basic Wangi blank. And so if you're familiar with, let me switch to this camera. If you're familiar with Wangi, it's a beautiful dark chocolate color with some dark grain veining in it. And I wish I would have brought one with me. I think I might have left it on the table. And I think I might have talked about this in a previous demo. This is a great technique to have under your belt. So this is Wangi, and all I did was I put it in bleach. And I bleached it out for a good 3 hours, and I got that color change.
After you made the blank.
I'm sorry?
After you made the blank. This is done
Yes.
after it's already turned into.
Oh yeah, sorry. Yeah, it's all turned down.
Yep.
Put it in bleach for a couple hours. Then when I pull it out, you're gonna feel some growth on it, if you will, and nubbing.
Like grittiness.
I will let it sit 24 hours, and then I'll take it in and I'll just use 4/0 steel wool. And when I'm done with it and I finish it up, there's the blank. Now, the first question you'll have is, well, how does that relate to some of the questions that we had or some of the stuff that we showed today? So I'm going to show you a couple other little blanks. So Glue Boost, if you're familiar with the Glue Boost product line, and John, do I have an orange blank up there? Pure orange? Nope. No. All right. That's okay. We'll do trans tint then. But Glue Boost has a coloring agent. I've got a couple videos on my YouTube channel where you can go in and you can see how I've colored the blanks with that. But I've got one here, like a basic blank that I did. This one's done with trans tint. Same exact concept. You could have other trans tints.
Sure.
This one's done with, I took a maple burl. No, I'm not going to have time to do it. I did a maple burl. And it's just a simple piece of maple. And I trans tinted yellow on it, which is the yellow. And then, believe it or not, I sanded it back. And then I trans tinted, I know I'd hate to be showing this color, but I trans tinted purple on it.
Big shock. He chose purple, huh?
I love the color purple.
Yeah.
So I trans tinted purple on it. And this is literally a piece of maple that I can take and I can just trans tint it. And I get something spectacular. So is this one I did black, sanded it off, and then trans tinted red on top of it. So just a couple other little things there that I want to show you. Now, one thing that I do want to talk about is that the Glue Boost product line. So remember this blank that I had here? And then the problem that you have is you see it, and then some other pen maker is going to come into your booth. They're going to pretend that they've never turned pens, which is always my favorite. They're going to ask you a lot of questions, still pretending that they've never turned a pen before. And then when you tell them what you're going to do, they go, oh, and they take it home, and then you'll see a bleached Wengi blank. So what do I want to do? I want to take it to the next level. So I took a bleached Wengi blank, and I used Glue Boost on it, and I colored my Glue Boost with the Glue Boost tints. And this is the Master Tint set. This is the Master Tint in orange, but this one's the Master Tint in yellow. And you can see here, yet something, no one will know how I took a Wengi blank, first bleached it, then took it, and then trans tinted it into it. You need to do a session on the trans. Yeah, I'll do that one. I'd love to do a session. I was thinking one of the things we might do is just a session on all the different ways that you can take a standard blank.
Sure. Color
So-
blank.
Yep. The other thing that I'll show you, and we'll see if anybody can answer this one. If you've seen my demo before, you'll know this next one or the one after this one. But this bleaching technique works great on this too. This is black palm. And I love bleaching different things. So you might want to take something and get an antique. I'm just going to watch to see if anybody in the comments knows what this blank is. So this blank is bleached, and it's got that antique look to it. Any guess what blank it is?
Oh.
No, I know you know. You've unfortunately had it.
Pick me.
I'm watching the comments. Anybody have any comment?
I should guess because I don't remember, even though you've said it 3 times.
Oh, 3 times over the 3 years that I've been doing this. This is Purple Heart.
Oop.
Yeah,
Revo got it.
Purple Heart. So it's Purple Heart.
Look at all those people. Purple
And
heart.
all I
did-
You're predictable, Mark.
Yeah.
And all I did was I bleached it. And I don't know if you can catch it on the camera.
Not in that angle.
It'll be a little hard to
Until
cut.
it gets to the
But you can see it's got gray in there. It's got some black in there. Up here, you can see the purple in there. Once again, it's just a great little technique that you can have in your pocket of taking something and bleaching it.
We're
And
gonna talk about trans tint sometime in the future, because one of the things that I'm working on with that is what we're going to call controlled double dyeing.
Yep.
You know, you try to double dye this stuff and stabilize it at the same time, and the results are very unpredictable. But if you make the pen and then go back and do as Mark is showing you here with trans tint, with any of the rest of the things that go over the top, you have control over the colors. So yeah, he's got one particular piece that he brings out from time to time, which is a peppermint
which I'll
that's
have at the MPG.
predominantly blue, and he's overshot it with some green. It's absolutely gorgeous. So yeah, there's an awful lot you can do with this stuff, and I'll quit interrupting you.
No, it's here's the blank. Here's the blank that I started with, literally. So you see the red and the purple. Here's the blank that I started with. It's maple. I took literally, I think Bill would remember this too. We did this in one of the clubs when I did it. We take a 25-cent piece of maple blank and say, what can you do with it? And so this is the exact same thing. It's the exact same blank. I just colored it black, sanded off most of the black, and then trans tinted red on it. This one I colored yellow, sanded it off, trans tinted the purple on it, and then these we're done basically doing the same thing, but I use Glue Boost as my product on there and tinted the finish on that one.
The one thing I'll tell you, if you try to do this before our next covering of it, if you're working with TransTint, it's not a bad idea at all to put a little acetone or some other mineral spirits. That's where I was headed. Mineral spirits in a small cup, and then put a couple of drops of the color in. You can make things darker very easily. Once you've got it, if you take it directly out of the bottle and try to do it, you're going to get it much darker than you had hoped for, and there's no turning back except, of course, sanding it down and so forth. So if you decide to play with this stuff before we, quote, show how we do it, be aware that it is intense coming out of the bottle.
You know, but the cool thing about it is, actually, there's a lot of times where if you sand it back,
Mhm.
don't start with a heavy sandpaper.
Okay.
Sand it back with a 400, something like that, and you'll see that yes, you've already committed to that color,
Mhm.
but you sand it back, take a little bit off, and then when you spray it with like a lacquer shot or any of the lacquers on there, my God, it changes to a beautiful, ridiculous. So this was more a prelude to probably a future meeting,
Yeah,
you know,
it's
in the
cool
last
idea.
10 minutes.
Mhm.
But I wanted to give you a little bit of an idea of some of the stuff that you can do. And this is one of the ones that I'm going to be doing at the AAW. I'm doing a version of your demo where I'm going to be doing one of my versions at the AAW is differentiating yourself in the world of pen making without casting. And these are going to be some of the techniques that I'm going to have. I'm going to have the dyeing technique. I literally take a piece of wangi at the beginning of it, cut it in half, throw it in a cup of bleach, and make sure that I don't accidentally drink it, and then I'm always fine.
Have
All
you
right, so we
tried
got
using lime? Go
We
ahead.
got one more question
I
on the
have tried
screen. Can we answer that question? And while we're doing that, Ed, can we give one more lacquer shot away?
Oh, sure, if you want to.
So,
All right.
Have you tried using liming wax on open grain wood? It does work great. I haven't done it on a pen. I've done it on bowls and platters and liming wax because I want a bigger grain, and so I'll do it on a bowl or platter. And you know what, Kim, I can bring that when we if we do a demo on using coloring and differentiating yourself, I can definitely do that one.
Okay. Anything else that we want to get in here? Here's our last chances before they take the last of the freebies.
I hope I win.
So while we're waiting on that, Mark, I got to ask you one thing. You claim to like purple so much. You pulled out that purple TransTint. Yet one of your favorite blanks to pull out is a purple heart that you erased all the purple.
There
You
you
know
go.
what? It's a different purple.
Yeah.
Purple heart is on the red color, is on the red hue, and I'm much more on the darker hue. But yes, Dean, I will tell you, it was just something I tried, and I appreciate the humor on it.
Dean, a few minutes before this started, we were walking through the racks, looking at everything, and Mark's seen a purple mica, and he fell.
Oh,
he's
yeah.
like, oh, like big shock! It's purple.
So if you come to the MPG or the AEW, Ed's gonna have some of the peppermill blanks that I've cast, and purple is gonna be a dominant color, and it just makes a beautiful color, and it's something beautiful on your table.
Yeah.
I don't know if I should take that as a compliment that it's like watching Masters of the Universe, or because it's a cartoon. Do we look like a cartoon to you?
See, and I grew up with that as a cartoon. I'm wondering who is He-Man, who's Skeletor, who's...
I worked at Toys R Us doing Cabbage Patch Dolls and Transformers. So I could tell you anything you want to know about Optimus Prime and any of the Transformers. So one last thing, if you don't mind.
Oh, yeah.
Is it okay for me to do this?
Absolutely. It's wonderful.
You guys haven't seen this yet tonight.
Yeah. You haven't seen or heard about this yet tonight. Just want to make sure that you guys all get this information. Midwest Pen Turners Gathering, April 11th and 12th. We're going to be at the
Marriott.
Marriott in Hoffman Estates, just outside of Chicago. If you're not familiar with Chicago, it's about 45 miles from Chicago, maybe about 50 miles from O'Hare. And I just love of doing this one. Are you going to SWAT? I will not be going to SWAT, but I will be going to the AAW. The AAW is going to be in Portland. And I can tell
No,
you
it's
this.
No.
Sorry, not in Portland, in Minneapolis.
Minneapolis. Yeah.
And if you're going to the AAW, we're going to talk about this next month. John's going to be doing two demos for the AAW, and I'm going to be doing 3 at the AAW, and Ed will be there also at the AAW. But the Midwest Pen Turners Gathering, $59, 14 different symposiums. Mr. Nelson himself will be doing one on closed end. So hopefully everything. If you have any questions, comments, jump to the MPG website. There's an info that you can send us questions to, or if it's okay, can they send something to sales at Exotic Blanks? Send your questions to sales at Exotic Blanks, and Dawn is very good at getting this information to me.
I'm seeing one that says David Brown, if you're not a Reese. We do have a David Brown, but please, David Brown, whoever you are, there might be another Brown, like Ed Brown, for example.
Or Jeff Brown.
Or Jeff Brown, or any other Brown. So please, with a name like David Brown, let us know which one you are and where we should send it.
So Revo, you said you're looking forward to meeting everybody. Make sure if you're coming to the MPG or you're coming to the AEW, especially the MPG, just come up and chat with us. We have a blast doing this one. I think, Betty, hopefully you can appreciate. I think you and I have become virtual friends over the courses of over the years and through YouTube and Facebook. So definitely. So if you're coming to the AAW, Riva, I'm also looking for people to help me do teaching pen making in the booth in the back.
It's a learn to turn event. It isn't really teaching, but it is a learn to turn event, and he did it at the last 2 AAWs ago.
Yep.
Then we were there with him. It's a lot of fun. A lot of people took part in it. A couple
300, we did 350 pens.
Okay. Well, so yes, it's an opportunity to show people how to turn, and at the same time, you'll have a good time. Just if you go into that area with Donna and Mark, you'll just have a good time right away. They really make it a very enjoyable spot, and people come out with pens that are pretty decent pens in some stuff. Of course, some of these guys are really good turners. They just haven't turned pens.
So last thing I'll say is I always thank Ed for having us out to do this one. It's always a blast, especially because the weather is better and we're not driving home in 3 inches of snow like we did in January. And the trip is only an hour and a half for me this way, as opposed to 2.5 when we went home in January. Yep. So, and as always, we're always looking for anybody who's got ideas. Shoot us a line at sales at Exotic Blanks for demos that we can do. Or if you see me at MPG or AEW, please come up and chat with us and talk to us about some of the ideas that you have and directions you want to see us take this. We're doing this more for you guys than sorry, that comes out weird, but we're doing it more because we enjoy being together, and we just enjoy doing it. And if you get a chance and you ever meet Rick from Glue Boost, thank him. We love his products. His products are fantastic. I think it's made a complete difference, especially the flexible finish in doing CA finishes on pens.
Well, it's nice to work with a company that asks you, how can I make this better for you?
Yeah, they send us product and say, listen, they ask us to
use this. Tell me what's wrong with it. Tell me what's right with it. How can we make it better? So, yeah, they're a great company.
Bill, the answer is one of the major reasons why we are doing this on YouTube now, as opposed to the Zoom presentation, is it does not require me to have any technical skills in order for it to be available on YouTube. So yes, these will be available. I don't know that it'll be immediately available.
I think it is. It's immediately available as soon as we close off.
Okay.
Yep.
Okay.
It stays available.
If you wouldn't mind doing us a favor when you watch it, if you liked it, please give us a thumbs up or give us a comment.
Yeah, it'd be good to hear some of the things, and same with this YouTube tonight. If you really think it's good or bad or whatever, send us
Bad.
an email at sales@exoticblanks. And no, we won't shoot Mark. So that's not
Wow, Ben and Mark. Ben and Mark, what an association. Wow. They're cold. It's cold in here. It might
It
snow.
is cold in here.
It's comfortable.
So yes, thanks everybody for coming. And without further ado, unless there's something else we need to do, I will let Dean push the buttons.
Thanks, everybody.
Thank you.
Thanks a lot.